Good evening there, ladies and gents. Welcome to Midnight Reddit Tales. We're back with another round of late night stories from Reddit. As always, if you enjoy winding down with these videos, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Grab a warm drink, pull up a blanket, and let's get straight to the stories.
Story 1.
For 11 years, my life was a grayscale photograph. After my wife Sarah lost her battle with cancer, the color just drained out of everything. I went to work, I paid the bills, I raised my kids, Tom and Jane, I existed. At 54, I figured that was my lot. I'd had my great love, and now my job was to just see things through. Then I met Lacey. It was at a charity auction of all places. She was volunteering, running around with a clipboard and a smile that could power a small city. We talked for 5 minutes, and it was like someone turned the lights back on. She was funny, sharp, and had this warmth that made you feel like you'd known her for years. For the first time since Sarah, I felt alive. Bringing her home to meet the kids was the real test. Tom, my son, is 27. He lives an hour away, but he drove in just for it. He shook Lacey's hand, saw the way I looked at her, and pulled me aside while she was in the bathroom. "Dad," he said, clapping me on the shoulder, "it's about damn time. I'm happy for you." I could have cried with relief. Then, there was Jane. Jane is 24, still in grad school, and she was always her mother's shadow. They were inseparable. The 11 years since Sarah's death hadn't been a healing period for her. It was a wound she kept picking at. When Lacey held out her hand, Jane just looked at it. "Jane," I prompted, my voice tight. She finally gave Lacey a limp, two-fingered shake. "A pleasure," she said, with the same enthusiasm you'd use for a root canal. That first dinner was a masterclass in passive aggression. Lacey, bless her heart, tried everything. She asked Jane about her art history program. "It's fine," Jane said, stabbing at a green bean. "Oh? What period are you focusing on?" Lacey pressed, still smiling. "The Renaissance." "How fascinating. I've always been drawn to Caravaggio. The drama in his work is just incredible." Jane looked up from her plate, her eyes like chips of ice. "Mom preferred Michelangelo. She felt he had more soul." The rest of the meal went like that. Every time Lacey said something, Jane would find a way to bring up her mother, drawing a line in the sand so clear it might as well have been a brick wall. It only got worse. A few weeks later, we all went out for my birthday. Lacey gave me a beautiful, sleek silver watch. I loved it. I was taking my old one off when Jane spoke up, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Oh, retiring that old thing?" she asked, nodding at the leather-banded watch in my hand. "The one Mom gave you for your 40th? I froze. "I'm not retiring it, Janie. I'll wear both." "Of course," she said, turning her gaze to Lacey. "That's a very generous gift. Must have cost a fortune." Lacey's smile faltered. "Joshua deserved something special." "He certainly does," Jane said, and took a long, pointed sip of her wine. The implication hung in the air times, "and you're not it, asterisk." I tried talking to her alone. I'd call her, invite her for coffee. "Jane, you have to give her a chance. She makes me happy." "Does she?" she'd reply, her voice flat. "Or does she just like that you have a nice house and a healthy retirement account?" That's unfair, and you know it. Is it, she's a 4? 5-year-old yoga instructor. You're a 5. 4-year-old executive. It's a classic story, Dad. Every conversation was a dead end. Every family get-together became a minefield. Tom saw it too. He tried to run interference, drawing Jane into conversations on the other side of the room, but she was relentless. A stray comment here, a withering glare there. She was making my life, and more importantly Lacey's, a living hell. The breaking point came at my mother's 82nd birthday party. I told Jane that Lacey was coming. The 30 seconds of dead silence on the phone should have been my warning. The party was at my brother's house, a big loud affair with 24 relatives, a mountain of food, and a backyard full of screaming grandkids. Lacey was a champ. She mingled, she charmed my aunts, she even helped my sister-in-law carry out the cake. I watched her from across the room, my heart swelling. This was it. This was the life I wanted back. Jane arrived late wearing a black dress that seemed more appropriate for a funeral. She ignored Lacey completely, giving her a look that could curdle milk as she walked past to hug her grandmother. For the next hour, I could feel Jane's eyes on us every time Lacey and I laughed every time I put my arm around her. Then my Uncle Frank cornered me by the grill to tell me a long, rambling story about his new fishing boat. It took 20 minutes to make my escape. By the time I turned around, Lacey was gone. I scanned the living room, the kitchen, the patio. Nothing. I found her in the driveway, standing by my car, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her face was pale and her eyes were glistening. Lace. What's wrong? Are you okay? She just shook her head, not looking at me. Can we just go, Joshua? Please. Go. What happened? Nothing. I have a headache. I want to go home. I knew she was lying. I looked back at the house and saw Jane standing in the doorway watching us with a look of cold, grim satisfaction on her face. My blood went hot. It was Jane, wasn't it? I said, my voice low. What did she say to you? Lacey finally looked at me and a single tear traced a path down her cheek. She wiped it away angrily. It doesn't matter. The hell it doesn't, I said, my jaw clenched. I started walking toward the house. Lacey grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. No, Joshua, don't. Please. Don't make a scene. It's your mother's birthday. Just take me home. I looked from Lacey's pleading, tear-streaked face to my daughter's triumphant smirk in the doorway. The anger in my chest felt like a physical weight. I took a deep breath, nodded, and led Lacey to the passenger side. The drive home was silent and suffocating. When we pulled into my garage, I killed the engine and turned to her. Tell me what she said. Lacey stared out the windshield. She found me when I was getting a glass of water. She told me to stop pretending, that she sees right through me. Her voice started to shake. She said I was a parasite latching onto you because you were a lonely old man with a full wallet. She said I was trying to erase her mother and that she would never ever let that happen. She finally broke, burying her face in her hands. She said she wished you had just stayed alone, that it would be better than being with someone like me. I sat there, the engine ticking as it cooled, a furious, white-hot rage building inside me. This wasn't grief anymore. This was cruelty. This was a calculated attack on a woman I loved, a woman who had done nothing but show my daughter kindness. I had let it go on for too long. I had made excuses. I had hoped it would get better. I was done hoping. The next morning, after a sleepless night, I drove across town. I parked in front of the apartment complex I paid for, walked up to the second floor, and knocked on Unit 2B. A moment later, the door swung open. Jane stood there in her pajamas, a coffee mug in her hand, a flicker of surprise in her eyes that quickly hardened into defiance. Jane, I said, my voice dangerously calm, we need to talk. Now. She stepped back, letting me pass without a word. The apartment was neat, filled with art books and half-finished canvases leaning against the walls. It was a space I'd helped her secure, a place I paid for so she could focus on her studies without worrying about rent. The irony was a bitter pill in the back of my throat. She closed the door and leaned against it, crossing her arms. What? Don't play dumb, Jane. You know what. What you said to Lacey yesterday. A small, humorless smile touched her lips. I just told her the truth. Someone had to. The sheer audacity of it sent a fresh wave of anger through me. The truth. You ambushed a guest at your grandmother's birthday party and called her a parasite. You made her cry. You call that the truth? I call it protecting my family, she shot back, her voice rising. She's not one of us. She's a replacement. You look at her and you're trying so hard to see Mom, and it's pathetic. This has nothing to do with your mother, I said, my voice dangerously low. It has everything to do with her. Jane's hands were clenched into fists at her sides. You think you can just slot someone else into her life, into her home, into her family? 11 years, Dad. That's all it took for you to decide her memory wasn't enough for you anymore. Every word was a twisting knife. Your mother is gone, Jane. I loved her more than my own life, and I will miss her every single day until I die. But I am not dead. I am allowed to be happy. And you have no right, none, to sabotage that. Happy, she laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. You're not happy, you're just lonely. And she saw you coming from a mile away. A sad, rich widower. The perfect mark. Do you really think she loves you? Or does she love the security, the trips, the nice dinners, the fact that she doesn't have to worry about money for the rest of her life? That was it. That was the line. All the patience, all the understanding I had tried to hold on to it, all evaporated. You'd rather I just withered away, wouldn't you? I asked, stepping toward her. You'd rather I just sat alone in that big house for the next 30 years, miserable, just to prove how much I loved your mother. Her eyes blazed with a tearful, righteous fury. Yes, I would. That would be better than watching you make a fool of yourself with some woman who's only after your money. I stopped a foot from her, the silence in the room crackling. I'd come here to reason with her to make her see the pain she was causing. But I saw now that she didn't care about the pain. She was wielding it like a weapon. Okay, I said, my voice flat, devoid of all emotion. I'm done. I am done with the insults, the glares, the cruelty. I am done letting you hurt a good woman who has done nothing but try to be kind to you. I saw a flicker of confusion in her eyes. She expected me to yell, to argue. She didn't expect this cold finality. Here's how this is going to work, I continued, my voice steady. You will treat Lacey with basic human civility. You don't have to like her. You don't have to be her best friend. But you will stop the snide comments. You will stop the accusations. You will be polite. If you see her, you will say hello. You will treat her with the same basic respect you would show a stranger on the street. Jane stared at me, her mouth slightly agape. You can't be serious. I'm deadly serious. You will do that, or this all stops. I gestured around the apartment. The rent? The tuition for your master's program? The monthly allowance I put in your bank account? It all ends. Immediately. Her face went from defiant to aghast. You would cut me off for times her asterisk. No, I said the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I would cut you off for you. For the hateful, cruel person you've become. You are using your mother's memory as an excuse to be a bully, and it's over. The choice is yours, Jane. Civility or self-sufficiency. For a moment, she looked like she might shatter. I saw the little girl I used to push on the swings, the teenager I taught to drive. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by a mask of pure contempt. You're an idiot, she spat, her voice trembling with rage. She's already turned you against your own daughter. I hope you're happy. She yanked the door open. Get out. I didn't say another word. I just turned and walked out, the slam of the door behind me echoing the one that had just closed in my heart. The drive home was a blur. I sat in my quiet house, the silence, a heavy blanket. The watch Lacey gave me felt heavy on my wrist. I felt sick. I had just leveraged my love for my daughter against her financial survival. What kind of father does that? My phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was Tom. I knew it would be. I let it ring 4 times before finally answering. Dad, his voice was tight with concern. I just talked to Jane. Then you know, I said, my voice weary. She's a wreck. She said you're cutting her off. I gave her a choice, Tom. A choice, Dad. That wasn't a choice. That was an ultimatum. You can't hold her education over her head like that. It's not fair. You know what's not fair? I snapped my composure, finally cracking. It's not fair what she did to Lacey. It's not fair that I have to watch the woman I love get torn apart by my own daughter. She cornered her, Tom. She called her a gold-digging parasite. When does it stop? There was a pause on the line. I know she went too far, he said, his voice softer now. I'm not defending what she said. But Dad, you have to understand where she's coming from. It's been you and us for 11 years. For almost her entire adult life. Seeing you with someone else, it's like she's losing Mom all over again. She just needs more time. How much more time, Tom? I asked, rubbing my tired eyes. Another year, another decade. Am I supposed to put my life on hold indefinitely while she refuses to process her grief? Lacey doesn't deserve this. I don't deserve this. I know. But threatening her financially, that's a hell of a way to handle it. You just poured gasoline on the fire. He was right. I knew he was right. I had escalated things to a point of no return. But sitting there listening to the echo of Jane's insults and picturing Lacey's tear-streaked face, I couldn't see another way. We talked for a few more minutes, but the conversation went nowhere. He thought I was being a tyrant. I thought he was enabling Jane's toxic behavior. After we hung up, I just sat there staring at a framed photo on the mantel. It was of Sarah Jane and Tom taken on a beach vacation a year before she got sick. They were all smiling, happy. A lifetime ago. I did it to protect Lacey. I did it to force a change. But as the doubt began to creep in, cold and sharp, I had to ask myself the question that was now screaming in my head. By using my money as a weapon to demand respect from my new partner, did I just become the asshole?
Story 2.
I was hanging out by the snack table, trying to look like I wasn't counting down the minutes until I could leave. When Lana walked in, I swear she had charisma that made everyone in the room want to talk to her. She wasn't just pretty, she had this energy that pulled people in. She laughed loudly, told stories that had everyone listening, and somehow made a party full of strangers feel like a group of old friends. At first, I didn't think someone like her would even notice someone like me. I'm not exactly the life of the party. But later that evening, she came over, grabbed a handful of chips, and said, "You look like you're trying to disappear into that wall." That broke the ice, and we eventually got along. We exchanged numbers, and the rest is history. Or at least it felt like history in the making back then. About a year later, we moved in together. It felt like the natural next step. My parents loved her right from the start. My mom would gush about how lucky I was to find such a sweet, fun girl, and my dad, who's usually pretty quiet, would actually start conversations with her. I'd never seen him open up to anyone like that before. Lana wasn't just great with my parents, she fit in perfectly with my friends too. One of the people she connected with the most was Sean, 31 years old, my best friend since high school. Sean's the guy who's been there through everything, the late-night phone calls, the breakups, the job failures. He even went to a different college after we graduated. But that didn't change anything. We still kept in touch constantly, visiting each other during breaks and picking up right where we left off every time. He's the guy who shows up when you're moving and refuses to let you pay him in anything but pizza. We've been through thick and thin, and there was no one I trusted more. When Sean met Lana, they hit it off immediately. At first, I thought it was great. My best friend and my girlfriend liked each other. What's better than that? Sean was a big personality, just like Lana, so they'd crack jokes and playfully roast me. It was all in good fun. And I never felt like I was being left out. When I proposed to Lana after 3 years of dating, Sean was the first person I told. He gave me a big hug and said, It's about time, man. You two are perfect together. He even helped me pick out the ring, which Lana absolutely loved. The first few years of marriage were great. Lana was working at a boutique, and I was grinding away in IT. Pulling long hours to make sure we, and my parents too, were financially stable. We didn't have a ton of money, but we made it work. Lana wasn't a fan of her job, though. She'd come home frustrated about difficult customers or long shifts, and eventually, she decided to quit. I supported her decision because I believed in her. She said she wanted to figure out her passion, and I thought, why not? We'll get through this together. Sean was still a big part of my life, too. We didn't hang out as much as we used to because adulting gets in the way. But we still made time for fishing trips and game nights. He was the guy who'd show up at my place with takeout when I was having a rough day. I always felt lucky to have him as a friend. My parents loved him too, especially my dad, who always said Sean was like the son he never had. In a way, it felt like we were one big extended family, which made everything that happened next even more unbearable. For me and Lana, we settled into our routines. She kept herself busy with side projects and hobbies while I worked extra hours to keep things running smoothly. Sean would stop by from time to time, usually when I was home, to hang out or catch a game. But then Sean started stopping by when I wasn't home. At first it was rare, a random afternoon here and there when he was in the neighborhood or needed to grab something he left behind. No big deal. Lana would mention it casually, like, "Oh, Sean came by earlier." At first I chalked it up to coincidence. Maybe he had extra time on his hands, or maybe he just liked hanging out with both of us. It didn't bother me at first. But then his visits started to become a little too regular. 3 times a week became 4, then 5. It wasn't just random drop-ins either. He'd be there when I wasn't home, helping Lana with things I hadn't even agreed to yet. Like one day I came home early from work, our systems went down, and there wasn't much else to do, and there was Sean in the kitchen, fixing a cabinet door that Lana said had been squeaky for months. They didn't hear me at first, so I walked in and said, "Wow, Sean, looks like you're running a side hustle as a handyman." Lana laughed nervously and said, "I didn't think you'd mind." He offered, "When did my best friend start offering to do housework for my wife without even mentioning it to me?" Don't get me wrong, I'm not the jealous type, but for me, it's just not normal to show up at someone's house several times a week when they're not home. But Sean, he didn't seem to have any problem with it. He brushed off my comment like it was nothing, saying, "Hey man, just trying to keep the place in one piece while you're out there killing it at work." I didn't say anything at the time. I didn't want to make a scene, especially since nothing technically wrong was happening. But I couldn't shake the thought, why is Sean so comfortable hanging out here when I'm not around? Then there were the texts. Lana started spending more time on her phone, laughing at things she wouldn't share with me. When I asked, she'd say, "It's just the group chat with the girls." I believed her at first, why wouldn't I? But one night, her phone buzzed while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping, I was literally grabbing it to move it off the edge of the counter. But Sean's name lit up the screen. The preview read, "Haha, you're hilarious. I'll save the date." It wasn't like I caught anything incriminating, but something about the tone felt weird. What date? And why was Sean texting Lana like this? I didn't bring it up because I didn't want to jump to conclusions. But for the first time, I felt uneasy. Then the coincidences started stacking up. Sean always seemed to know when I'd be working late. If I mentioned in our group chat that I'd be stuck at the office, guess who'd show up at my house within the hour? And Lana, she didn't seem to mind at all. If anything, she welcomed him like his visits were the highlight of her day. It started to bother me more than I wanted to admit. Not just because Sean was always around, but because of how natural it seemed to them. like they had their own rhythm, their own little bubble I wasn't a part of. The turning point for me was when I started realizing how little I actually knew about what was going on between them. I mean, when was the last time I'd been part of one of their jokes? When had Lana last told me about something funny Sean said instead of texting him back directly? It started eating at me, not in a jealous way, more like a what's really happening here kind of way. I decided to test the waters. One evening, I casually brought up the idea of the three of us hanging out. Hey, we haven't done a game night together in forever. Why don't we all catch up this weekend? I'll make nachos or something. Lana didn't answer right away. She was scrolling through her phone and barely looked up. I think Sean's busy this weekend, she said after a pause. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. Oh, yeah? Did he tell you that? That caught her off guard. She looked up, blinking. No, I just assumed. He's been working a lot, hasn't he? Now here's the thing about me. I'm not one to let things slide when they feel off. I wasn't about to let her change the subject without getting to the bottom of it. Well, I'll ask him, I said casually, pulling out my phone. If he's free, it'd be good to hang out. It's been a minute since we all did something together. Lana didn't argue, but she didn't seem thrilled either. That night, I called Sean to set up plans. He sounded surprised, but agreed immediately. Yeah, man, let's do it. I've got nothing going on this weekend. Been meaning to catch up anyway, he said. Interesting, so much for him being busy. When the weekend came around, the vibe was weird. Lana was quieter than usual, and Sean, for all his usual charisma, seemed more reserved too. I was watching both of them closely, trying to pick up on anything out of place. Wishing my thoughts were wrong. They exchanged a few quick glances that I couldn't quite decipher. You know, when you're in a group and two people share an inside joke and you're the only one out of the loop? That's exactly what it felt like. Halfway through the night, I asked Sean about work. Just normal guy talk. But before he could answer, Lana chimed in, saying something like, "Oh, he's been killing it lately. So busy with that new project." Sean gave her this sideways look, and I swear it was like a silent shut up. It wasn't even what she said that was weird, it was the way she said it. Like she was speaking for him. After Sean left that night, I asked Lana straight up about it. You two seem pretty close these days, I said, keeping my tone light but direct. She shrugged. You're imagining things. Sean's your best friend. Why would you even think that? I dropped it for the moment, but my instincts were screaming that something was going on. I couldn't prove it yet. But I wasn't about to let this slide. I decided to keep watching, keep listening. If something was happening between them, I was going to find out. At first, I told myself to take things slow. I didn't want to jump to conclusions and risk looking like some paranoid husband, but the more I paid attention, the more things didn't add up. It was in the way Lana seemed to light up whenever Sean was around. The way her phone would buzz with messages she always claimed were just the girls. And the way Sean always seemed to know exactly when I wouldn't be home. About a week after our awkward game night, I came home to find Lana sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Sean dropped by earlier, she said casually, without even looking up. Oh yeah? What for? I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. He just needed to grab something, she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. But my gut was telling me otherwise. Why did he always need to grab something? What was he leaving behind so often that he had to come over multiple times a week? I decided to call Sean later that night, just to see if his story matched up. Hey man. Lana said you stopped by earlier. Everything good? He hesitated for a split second before saying, oh yeah, just forgot my sunglasses from last time. That hesitation was all I needed to know something wasn't right. Sean never hesitated. He was the smooth talker, always quick with a joke or a story. That pause told me he was scrambling to come up with something believable, but I still didn't have proof. The breakthrough came a few days later. Lana told me she was going out to dinner with friends, which wasn't unusual. She dressed up, wore perfume, and left the house in a rush. I didn't think much of it until I heard a notification buzz sound. It wasn't my phone. It was coming from her phone, sitting on the counter. She'd forgotten it. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next, but I had to know. I unlocked her phone. It was easy. She used the same passcode for everything, and went straight to her messages. Sure enough, there were dozens of texts between her and Sean. Most of the texts were harmless, at least on the surface: banter, random memes, even small talk about the weather. But as I scrolled further, I noticed a pattern: messages sent late at night, ones that were deleted mid-conversation, and just enough vague phrases to make my stomach churn. Then I saw a message that stopped me cold. It was from Sean, looking forward to later. Same time, same place. I stared at it, my mind spinning. Same time, same place. What did that even mean? I had no clue what this place could be. But I wasn't about to let it go. My first thought was to check Lana's calendar app. She was meticulous about scheduling, so I figured if they'd been meeting somewhere regularly, there might be a clue. Sure enough, I found a recurring appointment every 2 weeks at 7:30 in the evening, labeled as gym night. But here's the thing, Lana didn't even have a gym membership. That wasn't enough to prove anything though, so I kept digging. Her location history was turned off on her phone, but her Google Maps app still had recent searches saved. When I opened it, I saw a nearby hotel listed as visited 2 days ago. A pit formed in my stomach. I hadn't even known she'd left the house 2 days ago. Still, I couldn't jump to conclusions. Maybe she was meeting a friend there for coffee at the attached cafe. Or maybe I was grasping at straws. But then, I remembered something. Sean and I had stayed at that hotel once during a road trip years ago. He knew it well, and it wasn't the kind of place you'd go unless you had a reason. I decided to test my theory. I opened a browser on my laptop and searched for local hotels, pulling up their reservation systems. After a little trial and error, I found the hotel and clicked Find my reservation using Sean's email address. It hadn't changed since high school. I plugged in a few guesses for recent dates. Bingo, there it was. A reservation under his name for a room last week, and another one for that very night. I felt like I'd been slapped. This wasn't paranoia, this was real. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. My mind racing with questions I wasn't sure I wanted the answers to. When I pulled into the parking lot, I didn't know what I was expecting. Part of me hoped I was wrong, that this was all some huge misunderstanding, but then I saw them. Lana and Sean walked out of the hotel lobby together. She was holding onto his arm and they looked comfortable. Too comfortable. I stepped out of my car and called out, "Lana." The look on her face was a mix of shock and guilt. Sean looked like a deer in headlights. "Nate," she started, her voice trembling. "This isn't what it looks like." "Don't," I said, cutting her off. "I don't want to hear it." Sean tried to step in. "Look, man, let's just talk about this." "Talk about what?" I snapped. "How you've been sneaking around with my wife. How long has this been going on, huh? Since the shelves? Or was it before that?" Neither of them had an answer. Sean, my best friend since we were dumb kids in high school, just stared at the ground like a coward. Lana, the woman I had promised to love and build a life with, stood there, biting her lip, looking more annoyed than ashamed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hit something, break something, make them feel a fraction of the pain they had just dealt me. But I couldn't move. My chest felt tight, like my body was physically rejecting what my eyes were seeing. "You don't even have anything to say?" I asked, my voice cracking. Sean finally looked up, but instead of guilt, there was this pathetic attempt at sympathy. "Nate, man, I didn't..." "Don't," I snapped, cutting him off. "You didn't what? Didn't think I'd find out? Didn't think it would hurt me? You've been my best friend for over a decade. You stood next to me at my wedding. You told me I'd found my soulmate, and now what the hell am I supposed to do with this?" His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He just looked at me like I was the one who had done something wrong. And Lana, she didn't even bother trying to defend herself. She just stood there, tears in her eyes, but no words, no apology, nothing. That silence was worse than anything they could have said. I walked away, feeling like I was moving through quicksand. Every step felt heavier than the last. When I got to my car, I gripped the steering wheel so tightly. My entire world had been shattered, not just by my wife, but by the one person I thought would always have my back. The betrayal from Lana hurt, sure, but Sean, that felt like someone had reached inside me and ripped out my heart. I trusted him like a brother. He was the guy who'd seen me at my lowest points, who knew everything about me, my fears, my dreams, all of it. And now I couldn't stop wondering how long he'd been laughing behind my back. I kept replaying every moment over the last few months, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. What signs did I miss? When did my wife and my best friend become strangers to me? The next morning, I woke up feeling hollow. Lana was downstairs, acting like nothing had happened. I didn't say a word to her. I didn't trust myself to. Instead, I called a lawyer. Starting the divorce process felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. Every signature, every document was a reminder of the life I thought I had and the people who had destroyed it. I didn't tell Lana right away. I needed time to process, to get everything in order before I confronted her again. When I finally handed her the papers, she broke down. She sobbed, saying she was sorry, saying she'd do anything to fix it. "Nate, please," she begged, grabbing my hand. "We can work through this. I'll cut him off. I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't give up on us." I stared at her as she cried, and instead of feeling sorry for her, I felt disgusted. The woman in front of me wasn't the one I married. She was a stranger, someone who had destroyed everything I cared about. "Save your tears," I said coldly. "You didn't just betray me, Lana. You destroyed my entire life, my marriage, my trust, my friend. Do you even get what you've done?" She tried to grab my hand, sobbing. "Nate, I'll cut him off. I'll fix this. Just give me a chance." I pulled my hand back. "Fix it? You already made your choice, and it wasn't me. You chose him. And you don't get to act like there's anything left to save. You wrecked everything." "I'm done," I said before walking away without looking back. I thought that was the end of it. The divorce was messy, but straightforward. I wasn't interested in dragging it out. I just wanted a clean break. And I thought I'd finally started to regain some control. But then I made the mistake of telling my parents. I sat them down, ready to lay everything out, expecting the kind of righteous anger parents are supposed to have when someone hurts their child. I thought they'd be on my side, furious on my behalf. Instead, my mom gave me this sad, almost pitying look. "She must have felt so lonely," she said softly, shaking her head. "You've been working so much, Nate. Maybe she just needed someone to talk to." I froze, staring at her, hoping I'd misheard. "She didn't just talk to him, Mom. She slept with Sean, my best friend. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's betrayal. Before my mom could respond, my dad jumped in, trying to smooth things over. Son, marriage is hard. People make mistakes. Are you sure this is worth throwing everything away? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Throwing everything away? I snapped. She cheated on me with Sean. You've known him for years. He was like family, and you expect me to just forgive and forget? Do you even understand what you're asking me to do? They didn't respond. They didn't have to. The look on their faces said it all. They weren't on my side. They weren't going to defend me. For a moment, I stood there in silence, trying to make sense of it all. Then it hit me. Did Lana come to you? I asked. My mom hesitated, glancing at my dad before nodding. She came crying, she admitted softly, like it explained everything. And there it was. Lana had gotten to them first. Of course, she had. I could imagine how it went down. Lana, with her perfect ability to play the victim, showing up at their house with tears streaming down her face. She probably made it seem like the world had turned against her, like she had nowhere else to go. My parents, who had loved her like a daughter from the moment they met her, would have opened their arms without hesitation. She's so sweet, so thoughtful, my mom always said about Lana. You're lucky to have her. My dad wasn't much of a talker, but even he once called her a gem. Lana knew exactly how they felt about her, and she used it. She must have spun them a story so convincing they didn't even question it. I could hear her words in my head. Nate's been so distant. He works all the time, and I felt so alone. Sean was just trying to be supportive, and things got confusing. Lana was good at this. She always knew how to get people on her side, how to make them believe what she wanted them to. She cried the right amount, said the right words, and let my parents fill in the gaps with their own assumptions, and they ate it up. To them, she wasn't a cheating wife. She was the poor, lonely woman who had made a mistake because her husband wasn't emotionally present. And Sean, my parents adored him just as much as they did Lana. Sean had been around my family for years. He was the guy who would show up for family dinners, joke with my dad about football, and compliment my mom's cooking like it was Michelin-starred. He was the good kid, the one they trusted to always do the right thing. There was no way they'd believe he was capable of stabbing me in the back, not unless I had physical evidence to show them. To them, Sean was the golden boy who had probably just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. My dad rubbed his temples, looking uncomfortable. Nate, you know how much we care about Sean. He's been like a second son to us. Maybe things just got out of hand. Maybe he didn't mean for it to happen. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Didn't mean for it to happen, Dad? They didn't trip and fall into bed together. They planned it. They lied to me for months, and you're sitting here defending them. Lana didn't tell us all the details, my mom said quickly, as if that excused her loyalty to them. She just said she made a mistake and felt terrible about it. She said she didn't want to hurt you. Are you kidding me? I said. She destroyed my entire life. She betrayed me with Sean, and now she's got the two of you defending her. I can't believe this, Nate. We're not taking sides, my mom said, her voice shaky. We just don't want to lose anyone. We don't want the family to fall apart. You're already losing me, I said sharply. You've already taken her side. You're choosing her and him over me, and you don't even realize it. My mom's eyes filled with tears. That's not true. We love you, Nate. We're just trying to understand what happened. Lana said she felt abandoned. And Sean was just trying to help, she added. Stop, I interrupted. Don't even finish that sentence. If you can sit here and believe anything she says after what she's done, then maybe you never really had my back in the first place." The room fell silent. My dad looked at the floor. My mom wiped her tears. And I stood there, feeling like I had just lost everything. It wasn't just Lana and Sean, it was my parents too. Lana's manipulation had worked perfectly. She turned my parents against me, and now I wasn't just fighting her and Sean, I was fighting my own family. A week later, I found out just how deep Lana's manipulation went. I was still annoyed by my parents, but I went to their house unannounced to drop off money. I'd been helping them financially for years since retirement had stretched their savings thin. It wasn't a big deal to me. I saw it as part of being a good son. But when I walked through that door, I saw something that made me stop cold. Lana and Sean were sitting at the dining table with my parents, laughing, drinking coffee, acting like they were family. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the scene. My dad was chuckling at something Sean said. My mom was refilling Lana's cup. And the two people who had betrayed me were right at the center of it all, like they belonged there. They didn't even notice me coming. I slammed my hand on the table so hard the mugs rattled. "What the hell is this?" I demanded, my voice sharp and loud enough to cut through their fake little tea party. Everyone turned to look at me, their smiles vanishing. My mom looked startled, like she'd been caught sneaking cookies before dinner. My dad immediately glanced down, avoiding eye contact. Lana looked calm, and Sean smirked. "Nate." "This isn't the time," Sean said, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. I couldn't believe the audacity. My blood boiled, and I could feel the anger bubbling to the surface. "Not the time? You're sitting in my parents' house, at my family's table, after screwing my wife behind my back. And you think you can tell me it's not the time?" Sean crossed his arms and shrugged. "We're just enjoying ourselves, man. You need to calm down." "Calm down?" He actually said that. I was already shaking with rage, but then he had the nerve to add, "Look, we're family, Nate. You need to stop making this so hard for everyone. This isn't just about you. I lost it." "Family? You think you're part of the family after what you did to me? You don't even deserve to step foot in this house." Lana decided to chime in at this point. "Nate, we're just trying to move forward. We didn't mean for you to find out like this, but Sean and I—" "Don't you dare," I said, cutting her off. "Don't you dare try to justify this. You destroyed our marriage. And now you're sitting here laughing with my parents like nothing happened. How long have you been planning this? How long have you been sneaking around behind my back?" Sean leaned forward, his smirk disappearing. "Since we were in college," he said, his tone cold and flat. Everything in the room froze. My parents went silent. Even Lana looked at him startled. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice low and dangerous. "You heard me," Sean said. "Lana and I were meant to be together. We knew it back in college. We went to the same college, Nate. But you got in the way. You always had to be the hero, didn't you? Always had to take what wasn't yours." I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about years of friendship, years of trust, being ripped apart in one sentence. "You've got some nerve," I said, my fists clenching at my sides. "I gave you everything. I trusted you. You were supposed to be my best friend. And this is how you repay me?" Sean stood up, towering over the table. I don't owe you anything, Nate. Lana and I are happy now. You need to grow up and accept it. That was it. I lunged at him, grabbing the front of his shirt and shoving him back against the wall. You think I'm just going to accept this? You think I'm going to sit back while you waltz into my family and act like you belong here? Sean pushed back, his hands gripping my arms. Let go, man. You're just embarrassing yourself. Enough. My dad shouted, stepping between us and forcing us apart. That's enough, Nate. This isn't how we handle things in this house. I stepped back, breathing hard, my hands still balled into fists. How we handle things, I said, glaring at my dad. You're letting them into your house, Dad. You're treating them like they did nothing wrong. Who even are they? Complete strangers. You're supposed to be on my side. I'm your son, Nate, my mom said, her voice trembling. We're trying to keep the family together. I just lost it at that. And there was no point in arguing anymore. You think this is family? Enjoy your new son and daughter then, because you just lost me. I stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind me. My dad didn't call after me. My mom didn't try to stop me. The only sound was Sean's voice, smug and confident as he said, "You'll get over it." I didn't get over it until I made damn sure he got what he deserved. One thing was crystal clear for me: I was done. Done with Lana, done with Sean, and done with my parents. They'd all made their choices, and now I was going to make mine. When I got home, I opened my laptop and canceled the monthly transfers to my parents' bank account. For years, I'd been helping them out financially, quietly paying bills, making sure they never had to stress about money. I never thought twice about it because they were my parents, and I thought that's what you do for family. But after what I saw at that dinner table, they didn't deserve another dime from me. They could ask Sean since he's now their son. It didn't take long for them to notice. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my mom. I let it go to voicemail. The next day, my dad texted me, "We need to talk." I ignored it. If they wanted to play happy family with Lana and Sean, they could do it without my help. But that wasn't enough. Cutting them off financially was just step one. Then I turned my attention to Sean. The smug bastard thought he'd gotten one over on me, but he underestimated just how much I knew about him. See, Sean wasn't as squeaky clean as he liked to act. Back when we were younger, he'd been involved in some shady business deals. Nothing major, but enough to leave a trail if someone knew where to look. And I knew exactly where to look. I spent a few late nights digging through old files, emails, and conversations. I compiled everything, every shady transaction, every time he'd bent the rules at work, every little skeleton in his closet. Then I sent it all to his boss anonymously. It didn't take long for the fallout to hit. Sean lost his job within a week. The guy who'd smugly told me to get over it was suddenly scrambling to make ends meet. And Lana, she wasn't exactly thrilled about going from cozy dinners, with my parents to scraping by on whatever Sean could scrape up. But I wasn't done. I still had access to some shared accounts from when Lana and I were married. Nothing illegal, just little things she'd forgotten to change over. I made sure to lock her out of anything I had control over and canceled every subscription she freeloaded off of Netflix, Spotify, even her favorite meal delivery service. It was satisfying, absolutely. The final blow came when I reached out to a lawyer friend and had a formal letter drafted demanding that Lana return the few sentimental items she'd taken when she left, stuff that actually mattered to me. She ignored the letter at first, but when she realized I wasn't backing down, she had no choice but to hand them over. By the time I was done, their little fairy tale life was crumbling. Sean couldn't find steady work because his reputation in his industry was shot. Lana was stuck with a man who couldn't even provide for her the way I had. And the best part? My parents started feeling the strain too. When the financial support stopped, reality hit them hard. Their bills started piling up, and the comfortable retirement I'd been subsidizing wasn't so comfortable anymore. It didn't take long before they came knocking. I'll never forget the day my parents showed up at my apartment. My mom looked desperate, my dad exhausted. "Nate," my mom started, her voice shaky. "We're sorry, we didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk?" I crossed my arms. "Talk about what?" "How you chose Lana and Sean over me. How you laughed with them while they destroyed my life." Tears welled up in her eyes. "We made a mistake. Please, we're family. Don't shut us out." I let out a bitter laugh. "Family? You replaced me with Sean and Lana. Enjoy them." My dad finally spoke. "We were wrong. We thought we were keeping the peace, but we lost you instead." I stared at them. "You don't get to pick and choose when to support me. You made your choice. Now live with it." They left without another word. And for the first time in weeks, I felt in control. As for Lana and Sean, I haven't heard from them directly, but I know through mutual friends that things aren't going well. Their money problems have only gotten worse, and the stress has started to show. Turns out their so-called perfect connection isn't so perfect when life gets tough. And me? I'm doing just fine. I've cut out the people who had no place in my life and shifted my focus back to myself. I've reclaimed what was mine. And as for the rest of the damage they caused, I'll leave that to karma to handle. Thanks to everyone who followed along and gave me advice. It helped more than I can say.
Story 3.
The text from my brother Kevin lit up my phone screen. "Hey Stell, Sarah and I have huge news. Can we swing by the new place in an hour?" My heart did a little flip. Huge news could only mean one thing. A baby. Finally. I texted back an enthusiastic yes and tossed my phone onto the granite countertop, a huge goofy grin plastered on my face. I looked around my house times house, and the grin widened. After a decade of cramming my life into shoebox apartments and saving every last cent, I'd done it. I'd bought a 3-bedroom Craftsman with a wraparound porch and a backyard big enough for a dog. The air still smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Sunlight streamed through the big bay window in the living room, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It was perfect. And now I get to fill one of the spare rooms with toys for my future niece or nephew. An hour later, Kevin's car pulled into my driveway. He and Sarah got out, her hand resting protectively over her small, barely there bump. I met them on the porch, pulling them both into a huge hug. "I knew it," I squealed. "Congratulations." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Kevin said, but he was beaming. "First, the grand tour. We've only seen the pictures." I led them through the house, my chest swelling with pride. They gushed over everything, the refinished hardwood floors, the subway tile in the kitchen, the spacious master bedroom. "Wow, Stella. You really did it," Sarah said, running a hand along the banister as we headed back downstairs. "It's incredible." "It's even bigger than it looks in the photos." Kevin added his eyes, scanning the open plan living and dining area. "Lots of room." "Plenty," I agreed. "Okay, spill. I want all the details. When are you due? Do you know what you're having?" We settled on the new sofa I'd spent a month agonizing over. Kevin leaned forward, his happy-go-lucky expression shifting into something more serious. "Okay, so that's kind of what we need to talk about," he began. "The baby is due in March, and with our lease up in February, we need a bigger place, a family home." "Oh, that's perfect timing," I said. "We can start looking for you guys right away. I saw a few cute places over in the Northwood area when I was searching." Kevin and Sarah exchanged a look. It was a quick practice glance that made a knot of unease form in my stomach. "We won't have to look," Kevin said slowly, his gaze sweeping around my living room again. "Because we've already found the perfect house." I waited. He just stared at me, a weirdly expectant look on his face. Okay, I prompted. Where is it? You're sitting in it, Sarah said, softly placing a hand on Kevin's arm. I laughed. A short, sharp bark of disbelief. Very funny. Seriously, guys. Neither of them cracked a smile. The silence stretched thick and suffocating. The sunlight suddenly felt harsh, exposing the absurdity of the moment. You're not joking, I whispered. Of course not, Kevin said, his tone shifting from serious to matter of fact, as if he were explaining a simple math problem. Look, it makes perfect sense. Mom and I were talking about it last week. She was going to give me the money she'd saved for my down payment, but this is just cleaner. You sign the house over to me and Sarah and we're all good. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. I was trying to connect the words he was saying, but they simply wouldn't fit together in any logical way. Sign. The house over to you, Kevin. I just bought this house. I closed 2 weeks ago. My name is on the deed. My money paid for it. I know that, he said, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. But you don't need it. You're single. What are you going to do with 3 bedrooms? This is a family home. We're starting a family. We need it. It's better for the baby, Sarah chimed in, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. All this space for him to crawl around. A yard to play in. You want what's best for your nephew, don't you? I shot to my feet, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. You cannot be serious. You can't just come into my home and demand I hand it over. That is insane. It's not a demand, Stella. It's a family decision, Kevin said, his voice rising to match mine. He stood up too, puffing out his chest. He'd always used his size to intimidate me when we were kids, and the old reflex to shrink back kicked in. I fought it. Mom and Dad already agreed. This is happening. Get out, I said, my voice trembling with rage. Don't be like this, Sarah pleaded. We're family. No, family doesn't do this. Get out of my house. Now. They left muttering about how selfish and unreasonable I was being. The second the door slammed shut, I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed my mom. She'd sort this out. She'd tell me Kevin was being ridiculous, that it was some horrible, twisted joke. She answered on the second ring. Hello, dear. Mom, I gasped, tears starting to blur my vision. You will not believe what Kevin just did. He came here and told me I have to give him my house. There was a pause on the other end of the line. It was just a second too long. Stella, let's not be dramatic, she said, her voice smooth and placating. It was the same tone she used on Kevin when he threw a tantrum as a toddler. Your brother is starting a family. He needs a stable home. You're single? You can find a condo or something? The floor dropped out from under me. What? Mom, no? I worked for this. For 10 years I worked and saved for this house. This is my time's house. And we are so proud of you for that, she said, her voice hardening. But your brother's needs come first right now. He's always been more sensitive than you. You're the strong one. You can handle this. He can't. The classic golden child defense. Kevin was sensitive. I was strong. Kevin needed help. I could handle it. It had been the narrative of our entire lives. So you're just giving my dream away, the dream you supposedly encouraged me to chase. Don't be selfish, Stella. This is what family does. We support each other. Your father agrees. We've already discussed it. Just sign the house over. Don't make this difficult. Difficult, I shrieked into the phone. You're trying to steal my house, and you're worried about me making it, times difficult asterisk. That is enough, a deep voice boomed from the phone. My dad was on the extension. You will do right by your brother. You will give him that house, or you are no longer a part of this family. Do you understand me? We will disown you. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, the silence of my perfect empty house pressing in on me. Disowned. The word echoed in the high-ceilinged rooms. For a house. Asterisk, my time's house. The rest of the day was a blur of frantic texts and calls. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins. Every single one of them had been prepped. They all delivered the same message. Don't be selfish. Think of the baby. Your family needs you to do this. It was a coordinated, suffocating assault. My phone buzzed and pinged relentlessly until I finally shut it off, collapsing onto the sofa in a state of shock. The next morning, my phone rang again. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something compelled me to answer. It was my Aunt Carol, my mom's sister. Her voice was strained thick with a mix of anger and something else I couldn't place. Stella, she said, her voice cracking. You need to get to the hospital. What? Why? What's going on? It's your father, she sobbed. He collapsed. The stress of all this fighting. His heart. The doctor said it was a major cardiac event. She took a shuddering breath before delivering the final venomous blow. My sister said to tell you that this is all your fault. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering onto the hardwood floor. My fault. The words slammed into me, sucking the air from my lungs. I sank to my knees, the smell of fresh paint suddenly cloying and suffocating. My father was in the hospital because of me. Because of a house? I don't remember driving to the hospital. All I remember is the sterile, white hallway and the way my mother's face contorted into a mask of pure hatred when she saw me. What are you doing here? She hissed, blocking the door to his room. Kevin and Sarah stood behind her, a unified wall of accusation. Haven't you done enough? I want to see him, I stammered my voice, a pathetic whisper. No, Kevin said, stepping forward. You don't get to. You did this to him, all that stress, all that yelling. You upset him. The guilt was a physical weight crushing my chest. I almost broke. I almost said the words, asterisk, you can have it, just take the house. Just let me see him. Asterisk. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Mark, my boyfriend of 2 years. His name on the screen was like a lighthouse in a hurricane. I stumbled away from my family's venom down the hall and answered, Stell. What's going on? Your aunt called my mom, he said, his voice a steady anchor. I choked out the story, the words tumbling over each other in a messy, tear-soaked confession. Listen to me, he said, his tone firm but gentle. This is not your fault. His health has been bad for years. They are doing what they have always done, using your father as a weapon to control you. Do not let them win. I'm on my way. His words cut through the fog of guilt. He was right. This was their pattern. A pattern I'd been blind to my whole life. I had posted a vague, desperate version of the story on a legal advice forum the night before, and hundreds of strangers had said the same thing. Times. This is manipulation. This is financial abuse. Do not give in. Asterisk. I hung up with Mark, took a deep breath, and walked back to my family. They looked like vultures waiting for the final surrender. I looked my mother in the eye. I am not giving him the house, I said, my voice shaking but clear. This is insane, and I am done. Then you are done with us, my father's voice rasped from inside the room. He was awake. He'd heard everything. You are dead to me. That was it. The final thread snapped. I turned and walked away without looking back. I got in my car and made 2 phone calls. The first was to a real estate agent. 5 years ago, I'd bought my parents a small, manageable condo closer to their doctors, when their old house became too much. The deed was in my name. I paid the mortgage and the taxes. It was a gift. A gift I was now taking back. I want to list it immediately, I told the agent. As is. Price it to sell yesterday. The second call was to my company's HR department. My parents had been on my generous health insurance plan since I got the job. I have a qualifying life event, I said, my voice cold and robotic. I need to remove 2 dependents from my plan. The finality of it felt like setting a bone. Painful, but necessary. When Mark arrived at my house, I was sitting on the porch swing, watching the sun set on my perfect, hard-won home. He wrapped his arms around me, and I just let myself break. They disowned me, I told him. So I'm making it official. The fallout was nuclear. My mother received the 30-day notice to vacate and called me screaming obscenities I didn't know she knew. Kevin launched a smear campaign on social media, painting me as a greedy, heartless monster who was making her parents homeless and killing her father over some wood and drywall. Friends I'd had since kindergarten sent me texts telling me how disappointed they were in me. Then came the lawsuit. My parents, with Kevin as their mouthpiece, sued me for the value of the condo, claiming I had promised it to them as a permanent gift. It was baseless, ridiculous, and designed to bleed me dry. But I had the paperwork. Every mortgage payment from my account, every tax bill with my name on it. The judge threw it out in less than 10 minutes. Through it all, Mark was my rock. His family, who had always been kind, wrapped me in a love I'd never experienced. His mother called me every day. His father helped me change the locks on my doors. One evening, after a particularly brutal day of reading hateful comments online, Mark took my hand. "I don't want to be your boyfriend anymore," he said. My heart plummeted. "I want to be your husband. I want to build a life and a family with you that is nothing like the one you left. A family built on love, not transactions." I said yes, tears of relief and joy streaming down my face. 2 months later, the call I had been dreading and expecting finally came. It was Aunt Carol. My father had passed away. Another massive heart attack. "The funeral is on Saturday," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "Your mother wanted me to make it clear that you are not welcome. She said you have your house and that's all you ever wanted." That nearly broke me. The thought of him dying, believing I didn't love him, was a unique and exquisite form of torture. I spent a week in a daze, unable to function. Mark and a therapist he found for me slowly pieced me back together. They helped me see the truth: my father's death wasn't my fault. It was the result of a lifetime of stress, yes, but also of a family system so toxic it had poisoned itself from the inside out. My refusal to be their victim anymore hadn't caused the disease, it had just changed the timeline. A month after the funeral, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but some morbid curiosity made me press the button. "Stella," she said, her voice syrupy with false grief. "I've been thinking. I'm sorry for how things turned out." I held my breath, waiting. "But you have to admit," she continued, the velvet tone slipping to reveal the steel beneath, "if you had just given Kevin the house like we asked, none of this would have happened. Your father would still be alive." And there it was. Not an apology, but a final desperate twist of the knife. It was the last piece of proof I ever needed. "Goodbye, Mom," I said, and for the first time the words didn't hurt. They felt like freedom. I blocked her number. I blocked all of them. My family was gone. But as I stood in the living room of my beautiful home with my fiancé's arms around me and the promise of a real family ahead, I knew I hadn't lost a thing. I had saved myself.
Story 4. I'm Cal Porter, by the way. 38 years old, former campus security turned handyman, married to the most manipulative woman in New England. At least, that's what I discovered tonight, when Elise crept through our front door like a teenager sneaking past curfew. "Cal, what are you doing up?" Her voice carried that fake sweetness she used when she'd been caught doing something she shouldn't. I didn't look up from the wrench in my hand. "Fixing what's broken, my usual hobby." "How was the retreat, honey?" The silence stretched long enough for me to count 3 more drips from the faucet. When I finally turned around, Elise stood frozen in the doorway, her face pale as fresh paint. She clutched her overnight bag like a shield. The retreat was canceled, last-minute thing. Canceled? I wiped my hands on the dish towel, taking my sweet time. That's interesting, because I called the hotel around 9 to surprise you with room service. They said no faculty retreat was booked there. In fact, they said they haven't hosted a university event in 6 months. Elise's bag slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a thud that echoed through our suddenly very quiet house. "Cal, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You've always been creative with explanation." I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "But before you start spinning another story, you might want to know that your best friend Sasha left her scarf in Jeremy's car. The same Jeremy who's been texting you at all hours. The same Jeremy whose apartment you've been visiting when you thought I was working late jobs." The color drained completely from her face now. Elise had always prided herself on being smarter than everyone else, especially me. She worked in university HR, surrounded herself with professors and administrators, made sure everyone knew she'd married beneath her station. But right now, she looked like a kid caught stealing cookies. "Maybe we should take a break," she said, trying to regain her composure. Some time apart to figure things out." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I nodded thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right. We should take a break. In fact, let's make it permanent. Your things will be at the door in an hour." That's when she panicked. Really panicked. The mask slipped completely, and I saw something I'd never seen before in my wife's eyes. Genuine fear. "Cal, wait. Let's talk about this. I made a mistake, but we can work through it. We've been together for 8 years. That has to count for something." It did count for something. Right up until you decided Jeremy Linwood was more interesting than your boring handyman husband. She flinched at hearing his name. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to do some research." "Did you know Jeremy's engaged?" "Nice girl named Amanda. Works at the art museum downtown. I wonder what she'd think about her fiancé's extracurricular activities." Elise sank into one of our kitchen chairs, her perfectly styled hair falling across her face. "What do you want from me, Cal?" "Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's the beauty of it." I turned back to the sink, testing the faucet. The dripping had stopped. At least I'd fixed one problem. "There's just one more thing," I said, not turning around. "Sasha's phone auto-backed up to the cloud when she connected to Jeremy's Wi-Fi. Apparently, she's been documenting your little adventure for posterity. Some very interesting videos ended up in a shared folder that I now have access to." The chair scraped against the floor as Elise stood up abruptly. "You wouldn't." I finally turned to face her, and for the first time in months, I smiled. Really smiled. "Elise, sweetheart, you've spent 8 years underestimating me. What makes you think I'd stop now?" After she left that night, and she did leave, taking only what she could carry, I went up to our bedroom and found the box, hidden behind her winter coats, tucked away like a guilty secret. Inside were gifts from Jeremy, expensive jewelry I'd never seen her wear, a silk scarf that probably cost more than I made in a week, and a handwritten note that made my blood run cold. "You deserve so much more than him. Soon you won't have to pretend anymore, Jay." I sat on our bed, my bed now, and read that note 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my wallet. She was right. She did deserve more than me. And so did he. And I was going to make sure they both got exactly what they deserved. Ray Hutchins had been my best friend since high school, and after 20 years, he still thought the solution to every problem could be found at the bottom of a beer bottle. Tonight, as I sat across from him in the Rusty Anchor, our local dive bar, I was starting to think he might be right. So let me get this straight, Ray said, gesturing with his third Budweiser. Your wife's been screwing around with some professor, and instead of kicking his A, you're planning what, psychological warfare? Something like that. I took a sip of my beer, savoring the bitter taste. Jeremy Linwood thinks he's smarter than everyone else. Elise thinks she can manipulate her way out of anything. They're both about to learn otherwise. Ray leaned back in his booth, studying me with bloodshot eyes. You know, Cal, in all the years I've known you, I've never seen you like this. Usually you're the calm one, the guy who thinks everything through. Now you look like you're planning to burn down half the town. Not half the town, just two very specific people's lives. The Rusty Anchor was perfect for this conversation. Dark, loud, and full of locals who minded their own business. The kind of place where university people never set foot, which meant I could plan without worrying about word getting back to Elise or Jeremy. All right, Ray said, leaning forward. I'm in. What do you need? That's why Ray had been my friend for 2 decades. No judgment, no lectures about taking the high road, just loyalty. I need information. Jeremy drinks here sometimes, right? Usually on Thursday nights when he thinks he's slumming it with the locals. Yeah, he comes in with that group of young professors. Acts like he's doing us a favor by gracing us with his presence. Tips like crap, too. Perfect. What else do you know about him? Ray scratched his beard, thinking, drives that fancy silver Audi? Parks it right out front like he's showing off. Always talks about his research, something about modern American literature, and he's been bragging lately. Bragging about what? About how easy it is to steal a wife from a loser. The beer bottle cracked in my grip. I looked down, surprised to see red fluid on my knuckles where the glass had cut me. Easy there, butcher, Ray said, handing me a napkin. Save some fight for the actual enemy. I wrapped the napkin around my hand, thinking. Jeremy's car was his pride and joy. A lease he probably couldn't really afford. But it made him feel important. And if he was bragging about stealing my wife... Ray, do you still have that friend who works at the campus security office? Tommy? Yeah, why? I need to know Jeremy's schedule. When he's on campus, when he's not. And I need to know where he parks that Audi. Ray grinned. Now you're talking my language. 2 days later, I was crouched behind Jeremy's car in the university parking lot at 11 p.m. A bucket of fish guts from Ray's weekend fishing trip in one hand and a screwdriver in the other. The campus was mostly empty except for a few graduate students burning the midnight oil in the library. I'd done my homework. Jeremy always stayed late on Tuesdays, working in his office until around midnight. His car would sit in this lot, unguarded and vulnerable, for at least an hour. The fish guts went into the air conditioning intake vent. The smell would take weeks to get out. And every time Jeremy turned on his air conditioning, he'd be reminded that someone was watching him. Someone who didn't appreciate his extracurricular activities. The screwdriver took care of 2 tires, not slashing them, which would be obvious vandalism, but loosening the valve stems just enough to create a slow leak. By morning, Jeremy would have 2 flat tires and no idea why. As I worked, I thought about that note I'd found in Elise's closet. You deserve so much more than him. The arrogance of it. The casual dismissal of 8 years of marriage, of a life we'd built together. Jeremy saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to be removed. He was about to learn that obstacles sometimes fight back. I finished with the car and was packing up my supplies when I heard voices approaching. 2 students, walking across the parking lot, deep in conversation about some party they'd just left. I crouched lower behind the Audi, waiting for them to pass. "Did you see that post on Campus Confessions?" one of them said. "Which one?" "The one about the professor who's been hooking up with married women. Someone posted a blind item about it. They called him the tenure track homewrecker." My blood ran cold. I hadn't posted anything yet. Someone else was playing this game. "Do they know who it is?" the second student asked. "Not yet, but people are trying to figure it out. Someone said they saw Professor Linwood's car parked outside the Marriott last weekend when he was supposed to be at a conference." They walked away, their voices fading into the night. I sat back on my heels, thinking. Someone else knew about Jeremy and Elise. Someone else was stirring the pot. The question was, friend or enemy? I got my answer the next morning when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We should talk. Meet me at Dunkin' on Main Street at 2 p.m. Come alone. A friend." I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it. But I knew I'd be there at 2 o'clock. Curiosity was going to eliminate this cat. But at least I'd die knowing who else wanted to see Jeremy Linwood burn. The woman sitting in the corner booth at Dunkin' Donuts was not what I'd expected. Mid-20s, blonde, expensively dressed, with the kind of manicured appearance that screamed money and education. She looked up when I walked in, and I saw something familiar in her eyes. The same cold anger that had been eating at me for days. "Cal Porter?" she asked as I approached her table. "That's me. And you are?" "Amanda Morrison, Jeremy's fiancée." I sat down across from her, suddenly understanding everything. "How long have you known?" "About your wife? 3 weeks. About the others? 6 months." "Others. Plural." My stomach dropped. "Jeremy has a type," Amanda continued, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "Married women, usually a little older, always connected to the university somehow. Your wife is just the latest in a long line. Why haven't you left him?" Amanda smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because I want him to pay for it. And I think you might be able to help me with that." She reached into her purse and pulled out a thick manila envelope. Photos, emails, text messages, credit card receipts. Everything you need to destroy him completely. The question is, are you interested in a partnership? I looked at the envelope, then at Amanda's face. She was beautiful, intelligent, and absolutely ruthless. Jeremy had no idea what kind of enemy he'd made. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. "Total humiliation. Public, complete, and permanent. By the time we're done with Jeremy Linwood, he won't be able to show his face in this town again." I picked up the envelope and opened it. The first photo showed Jeremy with a woman I didn't recognize, kissing in what looked like a hotel room. The second showed him with another woman, this one in his office. The third showed him with Elise, taken through the window of his apartment. Jesus, that's just the beginning, Amanda said. "I've been documenting everything, every lie, every betrayal, every moment of his pathetic double life. The only question is, how far are you willing to go?" I looked up at her, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt something that wasn't anger or pain. I felt hope. "As far as it takes," I said. The plan Amanda and I hatched was beautiful in its simplicity. Jeremy thought he was untouchable. protected by his position at the university and his carefully crafted image as the charming, intellectual playboy. What he didn't realize was that his entire life was built on a foundation of lies, and we were about to pull out every supporting beam. It started with the campus gossip blog. Campus Confessions was run by some anonymous student with too much time and a talent for stirring up drama. They posted blind items about professors, administrators, and students. Usually harmless stuff about who was dating whom or which professor was rumored to be getting divorced. But they also had a massive following. And in a small college town, that kind of reach was powerful. Amanda had contacts everywhere. Her father was a major donor to the university, which meant she'd grown up around these. She knew which professors were having affairs, which administrators were embezzling money, and which students were selling drugs. More importantly, she knew how to feed information to Campus Confessions without being traced. The first post went up on a Wednesday morning. Blind item. Which married professor in the English department has been using university resources to wine and dine married women around town? Sources say he's got a whole rotation going, and at least 3 wives have fallen for his sensitive intellectual act. Word is, one of the husbands is starting to catch on. Stay tuned, Patriots. This one's going to get messy. By noon, the post had 300 comments. Students and faculty were speculating wildly about which professor it could be. Jeremy's name came up in the comments, but so did half a dozen others. The beauty of it was that Jeremy couldn't defend himself without looking guilty. I was installing new cabinets in a professor's office when I got the text from Amanda. Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? Phase 2 is where things got personal. That Thursday night, I waited in the parking lot behind the Rusty Anchor, knowing Jeremy would show up around 9 with his usual crew of young professors. Amanda had confirmed his routine: drinks with colleagues, then back to his apartment, usually with whatever woman he was currently pursuing. Tonight, that woman was my wife. I'd positioned myself behind a dumpster with a clear view of Jeremy's Audi. The fish guts from earlier in the week had done their job. I could smell the car from 20 feet away. And Jeremy had been driving with his windows down despite the October chill. At 9:15, Jeremy emerged from the bar, laughing loudly at something one of his companions had said. He was wearing his usual uniform. Expensive jeans, a button-down shirt that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and a leather jacket that screamed, "I'm too cool for this place." His friends headed toward their own cars, calling out goodbyes and promises to meet up again soon. Jeremy walked toward his Audi, keys jingling in his hand, completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse. I waited until he was alone, then stepped out from behind the dumpster. "Jeremy Linwood?" He spun around, startled. In the dim light of the parking lot, it took him a moment to recognize me. "Do I know you?" Cal Porter, Elise's husband. The color drained from his face. He took a step backward, bumping into his car. "Look, man, I don't know what you think is going on. I think you've been screwing my wife for the past 3 months. I think you've been telling her she deserves better than me. And I think you've been bragging to your buddies about how easy it is to steal a wife from a loser." Jeremy's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He was used to being the smartest person in the room, the one with all the clever comebacks. But standing in a dark parking lot, facing a husband he'd wronged, all that intellectual superiority evaporated. "Cal, right? Look, these things happen. Adults have complicated relationships. Maybe we can work something out." I took a step closer. Jeremy pressed himself against his car. "Here's what's going to happen, Jeremy. You're going to stay away from my wife. You're going to stop returning her calls. and you're going to find a new hobby that doesn't involve destroying other people's marriages. And if I don't, I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then you'll find out just how creative a bored handyman can be. Jeremy tried to push past me, but I caught his arm. Not hard enough to hurt him, but firm enough to make my point. We're not done talking, Professor. That's when Jeremy made his first mistake. He tried to pull away, lost his balance, and stumbled backward into the dumpster. The lid was open, and he went in head first, landing in a pile of garbage from the restaurant. I didn't push him. I didn't touch him. He fell entirely on his own. But the 3 college students who had just emerged from the bar didn't know that. "Oh my God, did you see that?" One of them shouted, already pulling out her phone. Jeremy struggled to climb out of the dumpster, his expensive clothes now covered in coffee grounds and food scraps. The students were laughing, recording everything, already uploading it to their social media accounts. "This is going to be everywhere," one of them said gleefully. Jeremy finally extracted himself from the garbage, his face red with humiliation and rage. "You did this on purpose," he hissed at me. "Did what?" "I was just trying to have a conversation. You're the one who can't stay on your feet." The students were still filming, still laughing. Jeremy looked around desperately, realizing that his carefully cultivated image was being destroyed in real time, broadcast to hundreds of followers who would share it with hundreds more. "Delete those videos," he demanded, turning to the students. "No way, dude. This is comedy gold." Jeremy started toward them, but I stepped in his path. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Professor." Threatening students? That's the kind of thing that gets you fired. He stared at me with pure hatred, understanding for the first time that he was completely outmaneuvered. The students were already walking away, probably posting the video to every platform they could think of. By morning, Jeremy's dumpster dive would be viral. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You're right," I replied. "It's not." I walked away, leaving Jeremy standing in the parking lot, reeking of garbage and humiliation. Behind me, I could hear him trying to start his car, the engine turning over reluctantly. The fish guts were really doing their job. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Just saw the video. Beautiful work. Ready for phase 3? I looked back at Jeremy, still struggling with his car, and smiled. Phase 3 was going to be the most fun yet. By Friday morning, Jeremy's dumpster dive had been viewed over 10,000 times across various social media platforms. The video had been shared, remixed, and turned into memes. Someone had even added a soundtrack. Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. But that was just the appetizer. The main course was about to be served. Amanda met me at a coffee shop across town, looking like she hadn't slept in days. There were dark circles under her eyes, but her smile was sharp as a blade. "Jeremy called me 17 times last night," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. 17. He wanted to know if I'd seen the video, if I knew who you were, if I thought this would affect his tenure review. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing, I didn't answer." She pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. But I did forward all his messages to Dr. Patricia Henley. I knew that name. Dr. Henley was the head of the English department, Jeremy's boss, and by all accounts, a no-nonsense woman who didn't tolerate drama among her faculty. "How do you know Dr. Henley?" "She and my mother serve on the museum board together. They've been friends for years." Amanda's smile widened. "Henley has very strong opinions about faculty members who bring negative attention to the department. And Jeremy's dumpster dive qualifies as negative attention? That's not all she's going to be concerned about. Amanda reached into her purse and pulled out a thick folder. Inside were printouts of emails, text messages, and what looked like financial records. Jeremy's been using his university credit card for his extracurricular activities, she explained. Dinners, hotel rooms, gifts for his various conquests. It's all here, documented and dated. The university takes a very dim view of faculty members who misuse institutional resources. I flipped through the papers, amazed at the level of detail. How did you get all this? I've had access to Jeremy's email and financial accounts for months. He's not very good with passwords. He uses the same one for everything. She leaned back in her chair, looking satisfied. The beauty of it is that everything I've collected is completely legal. We were engaged, living together, sharing expenses. I had legitimate access to all of it. And now? Now Dr. Henley has a complete picture of Jeremy's behavior. The affairs, the misuse of university funds, the negative publicity. She's calling an emergency faculty meeting for Monday morning. I felt a surge of admiration for Amanda. She was thorough, patient, and absolutely ruthless. Jeremy had no idea what kind of woman he'd been betraying. What about Elise? I asked. What about her? She works in HR. If Jeremy goes down, won't she try to protect him? Amanda's expression darkened. Let me worry about Elise. I have plans for your wife, too. That afternoon, I was replacing a broken window at the university library when I saw Elise for the first time since she'd moved out. She was walking across the quad with her friend Sasha, both of them looking agitated. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but their body language told the story. Sasha was gesturing wildly, pointing at her phone. Elise kept shaking her head, her face pale with worry. They didn't see me watching from the second-floor window, but I had a perfect view as they stopped near the fountain in the center of the quad. Sasha showed Elise something on her phone, probably the video of Jeremy's dumpster dive. And Elise's reaction was everything I'd hoped for. She went white, then red, then white again. She grabbed Sasha's arm, saying something urgent. Sasha pulled away, shaking her head. They argued for several minutes before Elise stormed off, leaving Sasha standing alone by the fountain. That's when Sasha looked up and saw me in the window. For a moment, we stared at each other across the distance. Then Sasha raised her phone and took a picture of me. I waved. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Cal, it's Sasha. We need to talk. Do we? Meet me at the Starbucks on Elm Street in an hour. Trust me, you want to hear what I have to say. I almost hung up. Sasha had been Elise's closest friend for years, her partner in gossip and manipulation. But something in her voice made me curious. Why would you want to help me? Because Elise threw me under the bus, and I don't like being anyone's scapegoat. An hour later, I sat across from Sasha in a crowded Starbucks, wondering if I was walking into a trap. She looked different somehow. Less polished, more human. The glossy veneer of the professional gossip was gone, replaced by something raw and angry. Elise told Jeremy that I was the one who left my scarf in his car. She said without preamble. She said I was trying to sabotage their relationship because I was jealous. Were you? Of Jeremy? God, no. That man is a walking cliche. But I was trying to protect Elise from making the biggest mistake of her life. Sasha pulled out her phone and scrolled through what looked like a massive collection of photos and videos. I documented everything, she said. Every lunch where Elise complained about you. Every shopping trip where she bought lingerie for Jeremy. Every time she lied about where she was going. I thought maybe if I showed her how pathetic she looked, she'd come to her senses. But she didn't. No. And when you confronted her, she blamed me. Said I was a terrible friend, that I'd betrayed her trust, that everything was my fault. Sasha's voice was bitter. 20 years of friendship, and she threw it away to protect a man who's been cheating on his fiancée with half the married women in town. So what do you want from me? Sasha smiled, and for the first time, I understood why she and Elise had been such good friends. They were both capable of breathtaking ruthlessness when crossed. I want to help you destroy them both, and I have exactly what we need to do it. She turned her phone toward me, and I saw a video that made my blood run cold. It was Elise and Jeremy in his apartment, and they weren't just having an affair. They were planning something. When did you record this? I asked. Last week, Elise thought I was in the bathroom, but I was listening at the door. Watch the whole thing. In the video, Jeremy was pacing around his living room while Elise sat on his couch looking worried. We need to get rid of Cal, Jeremy was saying. He's becoming a problem. What do you mean, get rid of him? I mean, we need to make him go away permanently. Jeremy, you're scaring me. I'm not talking about anything violent, but there are ways to ruin a man's reputation, to make sure he can't find work, can't show his face in town. My father knows people, lawyers, judges, businessmen. One word from me, and Cal Porter becomes unemployable. Elise was quiet for a long moment. Then, what would you need me to do? Just back up whatever story I tell. Say he threatened you, that you're afraid of him. File a restraining order if you have to. By the time we're done, everyone in town will think Cal Porter is a dangerous, unstable man. The video ended. I stared at the blank screen, feeling sick. They were planning to frame you, Sasha said quietly. Make you look like an abusive husband, so Jeremy could play the hero who saved Elise from a bad marriage. Why are you showing me this? Because Elise needs to learn that actions have consequences. And because I want to watch her world burn. Sasha leaned across the table, her eyes bright with malicious intent. The question is, are you ready to light the match? I thought about 8 years of marriage, about the life Elise and I had built together. About the man I thought Jeremy was versus the man he really was. I thought about their plan to destroy my reputation, to make me unemployable, to turn me into a pariah in my own hometown. What did you have in mind? I asked. The university's annual donor gala is tomorrow night. 500 of the most important people in town, including Jeremy's department head, the university president, and most of the major donors. Elise will be there in her professional capacity. And Jeremy will be there trying to network his way to tenure. And I'm going to make sure everyone sees exactly what kind of people they really are. Sasha's smile was absolutely carnivorous. By the time I'm done, Jeremy Linwood and Elise Porter won't be able to show their faces anywhere in this town. The university's annual donor gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Marriott, the same hotel where Jeremy had been conducting his affairs for months. The irony wasn't lost on me as I adjusted my tie in the men's room mirror, preparing for what would either be the most satisfying night of my life or a complete disaster. I wasn't supposed to be there. Handymen don't typically get invited to black tie fundraisers. But Amanda's father was one of the university's biggest donors, and she'd managed to get me added to the guest list as her date. Jeremy and Elise had no idea I was coming. "You clean up nice," Amanda said when I met her in the hotel lobby. She looked stunning in a black evening gown. Every inch the sophisticated socialite. But I could see the hunter lurking beneath the polished surface. "Are you sure about this?" I asked. "Once we do this, there's no going back." There was no going back the moment Jeremy decided to cheat on me with your wife and God knows how many other women. Her smile was ice cold. "Besides, Sasha's already in position." We walked into the ballroom together, and I had to admit it was impressive. Crystal chandeliers, elegant table settings, and 500 of the most powerful people in the city mingling over cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. A string quartet played softly in one corner while waiters circulated with champagne. I spotted Jeremy almost immediately. He was holding court near the bar, surrounded by a group of younger faculty members who hung on his every word. He looked confident, relaxed, completely unaware that his world was about to implode. Elise was across the room, working the crowd in her professional capacity. She wore a navy blue dress that I'd never seen before, probably bought specifically for this event with money from our joint account. She was smiling, shaking hands, playing the part of the competent university administrator. Neither of them had noticed me. "There's Sasha," Amanda murmured, nodding toward the far side of the room. Sasha was dressed as a server, complete with the hotel's uniform and a tray of champagne glasses. She'd somehow managed to get herself hired as temporary staff for the event. A trick that would have been impossible for anyone without her connections and determination. "Phase 1 begins in 10 minutes, Amanda said, checking her watch. "The university president always gives his welcome speech at 8:30. That's when we make our move." I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. "And you're sure this will work?" "Cal, I've been planning this for months. Every detail has been considered, every contingency accounted for. By the time this evening is over, Jeremy Linwood will wish he'd never heard the name Porter." At exactly 8:30, University President Dr. Robert Whitmore took the stage to give his annual welcome speech. The crowd quieted. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. All attention focused on the distinguished man at the podium. That's when Sasha made her move. She approached Jeremy's group with her tray of champagne, playing the part of the invisible server. But instead of offering drinks, she set her tray down on a nearby table and pulled out her phone. "Excuse me, Professor Linwood," she said loudly enough for half the room to hear. "I have something I think you'll find very interesting." Jeremy turned, confused. He didn't recognize Sasha in her server's uniform. Didn't understand why she was addressing him by name. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "Not personally, but I know you very well. I'm Sasha Chen, Elise Porter's best friend. Or rather, I was until she threw me under the bus to protect your affair." The conversations around them stopped. People turned to stare. Jeremy's face went white. "I think there's been some misunderstanding." "Oh, there's been a misunderstanding, all right. But it's yours, not mine." Sasha held up her phone, and suddenly the video she'd shown me at Starbucks was playing on the ballroom's main screen. The AV technician, another of Amanda's carefully placed allies, had connected Sasha's phone to the projection system. Jeremy's voice filled the room. "We need to get rid of Cal. He's becoming a problem. The crowd was transfixed. On screen, Jeremy paced around his apartment while Elise sat on his couch. I mean, we need to make him go away. Permanently. A collective gasp went up from the audience. Jeremy looked around desperately, realizing that 500 of the most important people in the city were watching him plot to destroy an innocent man's life. "Turn it off!" he shouted, lunging toward the AV booth. But the video kept playing. Elise's voice now. "What would you need me to do?" "Just back up whatever story I tell. Say he threatened you, that you were afraid of him. File a restraining order if you have to." I watched Elise across the room as she realized what was happening. The color drained from her face and she started pushing through the crowd toward the exit. But Amanda was ready for that too. "Ladies and gentlemen," Amanda said, taking the microphone from the stunned university president, "I'd like you all to meet Jeremy Linwood, associate professor of English and my former fiance. The man you just heard plotting to frame an innocent husband is the same man who's been using university credit cards to fund his affairs with married women." She nodded to Sasha, who switched the projection to a slideshow of Jeremy's financial record. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, jewelry purchases, all charged to his university account, all dated to correspond with his various affairs. And here, Amanda continued as new photos appeared on screen, are some of the married women Professor Linwood has been pursuing. Note the dates. Some of these relationships were concurrent. Jeremy's been quite the busy man. The photos showed Jeremy with at least 6 different women, including Elise. In restaurants, hotels, his apartment. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Jeremy tried to run, but the crowd blocked his path. Everyone wanted a closer look at the man who'd been exposed so thoroughly. Phones were out now, recording everything, ensuring that this moment would live forever on social media. "This is all lies," Jeremy shouted. "This woman is unstable. She's trying to ruin me because I broke up with her." That's when I stepped forward. "Actually, Jeremy, it's all true, and I have more evidence if anyone's interested." Jeremy spun around, seeing me for the first time. His face went from white to green. "You," he whispered. "Me," I agreed. "Cal Porter. The man you and my wife were planning to frame. The man whose life you wanted to destroy so you could steal his wife." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the projection system. New images appeared on screen. Photos Amanda and I had taken of Jeremy's apartment, showing gifts he'd given to various women, love letters he'd written, even a calendar where he'd scheduled his different affairs to avoid conflict. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what a hunter looks like," I announced to the crowd. Jeremy Linwood has been systematically targeting married women, using his position at the university to gain their trust, then manipulating them into affairs. When their husbands started getting suspicious, he planned to frame them as abusive to cover his tracks. The crowd was getting ugly now. These were donors, alumni, respected members of the community. Many of them were married couples who saw themselves in Jeremy's victims. "Where's security?" someone shouted. "Call the police. Get him out of here." Jeremy looked around desperately, realizing he was completely surrounded. That's when he made his final mistake. He tried to blame Elise. "This is all her fault," he screamed, pointing across the room. "She seduced me. She told me her husband was abusive, that she needed protection. I was trying to help her. The crowd turned to look at Elise, who had been trying to slip out unnoticed. Caught in the spotlight, she froze like a deer in headlights. "Is that true, Mrs. Porter?" Dr. Whitmore asked, his voice carrying clearly across the now silent ballroom. Elise looked around the room, seeing 500 pairs of eyes staring at her with disgust and condemnation. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. "So it is true," Dr. Whitmore said. "You did have an affair with Professor Linwood." "Yes, but..." "And you plan to file false charges against your husband to cover it up." Elise's shoulders sagged in defeat. "Yes." The crowd erupted. Angry voices shouted accusations, demands for justice. Security finally arrived. But instead of removing Jeremy and Elise, they had to protect them from the outraged donors. I watched it all with a sense of profound satisfaction. 8 years of marriage, months of betrayal, weeks of planning, and it all came down to this moment. Jeremy and Elise, exposed and humiliated in front of everyone who mattered in their professional and social lives. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Whitmore said, retaking the microphone, "I want to assure you all that the university will be conducting a full investigation into Professor Linwood's conduct. Any misuse of university resources will be dealt with severely." He paused, looking directly at Jeremy. "Professor Linwood, consider yourself suspended pending a formal review. Security will escort you from the premises." Jeremy was led away, still protesting his innocence, still trying to blame everyone but himself. Elise followed, her head down, her career in ruin. As the crowd slowly returned to their conversation, Amanda appeared at my side. "How do you feel?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. I'd expected to feel triumphant, vindicated, satisfied. Instead, I felt something simpler and more profound. I felt free. Like I can finally move on with my life, I said. Amanda smiled. "Good. Because Jeremy's suspension is just the beginning. By the time the university's investigation is complete, he'll be unemployable at any academic institution in the country. And Elise's career in university administration is over. What about you? What's next for Amanda Morrison?" "I'm moving to Boston. Fresh start, new job, new life. What about Cal Porter?" I looked around the ballroom one more time, at the people who would be talking about this night for years to come, at the wreckage of 2 lives that had tried to destroy mine. I think Cal Porter is going to be just fine. 3 months later, I was installing custom cabinets in a beautiful house across town when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Jeremy's number, a number I hadn't seen since the night of the gala. "Hello, Jeremy," I said, not bothering to stop working. "Cal, please, I need to talk to you." His voice was different. Smaller, desperate, broken. "I'm listening. I lost everything. The university fired me. Amanda took half my stuff when she moved out. And no one will hire me. I can't even get a job teaching high school. That's unfortunate. Please, Cal. I'm sorry, I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong, but I've paid for it. Can't we call it even?" I set down my drill and really considered the question. Jeremy had lost his job, his reputation, his fiancée, and his future. Elise had been fired from the university and was working at an insurance office in the next town over. Their affair had ended the night of the gala. Apparently, there is nothing romantic about mutual destruction. "Jeremy," I said finally, "do you remember what you told Elise in that video about making me disappear permanently?" "Cal, I never would have actually." "You destroyed my marriage. You tried to destroy my reputation. You were planning to make me unemployable in my own hometown. And you did it all because you thought I was beneath you, that I didn't matter, that I was just an obstacle to be removed." Jeremy was quiet on the other end of the line. "So no, we're not even. We'll never be even. You got exactly what you deserved, and frankly, you got off easy." I hung up and went back to work. Through the window, I could see the lake where Elise and I used to walk on Sunday mornings, back when I thought we had a future together. Now I walked there alone, and I preferred it that way. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Saw the news about Jeremy's lawsuit getting dismissed. "How are you holding up?" I smiled and typed back, "Never better. How's Boston?" "Perfect. New job, new apartment, new life. No regrets. Good for you. You know, you deserve happiness." "So do you, Cal. Don't forget that." I put my phone away and returned to my work. The cabinets were coming along beautifully. Solid oak, custom fitted, built to last. The kind of work I took pride in. The kind of work that would outlast whatever drama was currently consuming the university crowd. Outside, it started to rain. I listened to the sound on the roof and thought about second chances, about the difference between justice and revenge, about the strange satisfaction that comes from watching your enemies destroy themselves. Jeremy Linwood and Elise Porter had tried to erase me from my own life. Instead, they'd erased themselves. And I was still here. Still working, still building things that would last long after their names were forgotten. That night, I drove past our old house. My old house. The new owners had painted it yellow and planted flowers in the front yard. It looked happy. Lived in, loved. Nothing like the cold, tense place it had become during those final months with Elise. I drove to the Rusty Anchor, where Ray was waiting with a beer and a grin. "So," he said as I sat down, "any regrets?" I thought about Jeremy's phone call, about Elise's new job in the next town over, about the life I'd lost and the life I was building. "None," I said, and meant it. Ray raised his beer. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," I agreed. We drank in comfortable silence. Two friends who'd weathered the storm and come out the other side. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean.
Story 5.
The first week was fine. Sort of. Having my daughter Madison back home felt right. She's only 20 and holding her baby girl, my granddaughter Lily, just felt like the proper order of things. A house is supposed to have a baby in it sometimes. But our house had forgotten the language of newborns. It only spoke Ryan. Ryan is 11. He operates at 2 speeds, asleep and tornado. He's got ADHD that his doctor calls profound. I just call it Ryan. It's the way his brain is wired. He's not a bad kid. He's a good kid in a body that won't stop moving, with a mouth that won't stop talking, and a mind that ricochets from one thought to the next like a bullet in a tin can. The first incident was predictable. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Madison shuffled in her face, pale, and her eyes looking like two burnt holes in a blanket. "Dad." Her voice was a rasp. "You have to talk to him." "Talk to who? What's wrong?" "Ryan," she said, her voice cracking. "He just barreled into my room screaming about some new skin he got on Fortnite." Lily was finally asleep. Asterisk. Finally, asterisk. I sighed. I could already picture it. Ryan vibrating with an excitement he physically couldn't contain, forgetting everything else in the universe, except that one glorious singular thought he needed to share. Time's right now. Asterisk. "Okay, Maddie. I'll talk to him." She just stared at me, her arms crossed tight over a milk-stained t-shirt. A talk isn't going to do anything. He needs a consequence. I'll handle it. I found Ryan in his room, headphones on, body contorting as he dodged imaginary laser fire. I tapped his shoulder. He ripped the headphones off. "Dad, you should have seen it. I got the last guy with a no-scope from the top of the tower. It was insane." "That's great, buddy. Hey, listen. You gotta remember to be quiet. Your niece is sleeping and you woke her up." His face fell for a second. Genuine remorse flickered in his eyes. "Oh, I forgot. Sorry." "It's okay. Just try to remember, all right? Knock first." Quietly. "Okay, Dad. I will." He put his headphones back on, and the world outside of his screen immediately ceased to exist again. I went back downstairs. Madison was waiting, leaning against the counter, her expression unchanged. I talked to him. I said, pouring my coffee, and he said he's sorry. He forgot. Madison let out a laugh that was sharp and humorless. He forgot. Of course he forgot. He's always going to forget, Dad. That's the problem. "Madison, what do you want from me?" I said, my own patience starting to fray. "He has ADHD. His brain doesn't work like yours. He can't help how he behaves. It's not malicious. You of all people should know that." "I'm not saying it's malicious," she shot back, her voice rising. "I'm saying it's disruptive. I'm saying I haven't slept more than 90 minutes at a stretch in 2 weeks, and every time I get her down, he blows it up. I need your help. I need you to be a parent." The jab landed. I am being a parent. To both of my kids. That includes the one who needs a little more understanding. He's your brother. Cut him some slack. She just shook her head, a tear of pure exhaustion rolling down her cheek. "Just try to keep him away from my door. Please." I tried. God, I tried. But telling Ryan to be quiet is like telling the ocean not to have waves. For the next week, it was a constant battle. Ryan, indoor voice. "Ryan, stop running in the hall." "Ryan, for the love of God, don't slam the door." Each time he'd give me that same look of brief, sincere regret. "Sorry, Dad." And 5 minutes later, he'd be bouncing off the walls again, the promise vaporized by the next impulse. Madison started putting a chair under her doorknob. It didn't work. Ryan, thinking the door was just stuck, would jiggle and yank it until the chair scraped across the floor with a screech that was worse than him just opening it. Or he'd just bang on the wood. Maddie, you in there? The internet's down." The noise always woke the baby. The house grew thick with the tension you could taste. Madison stopped talking to me, communicating only in sharp, single-word answers. She looked haunted. Lily was always fussy, now overtired and miserable. Her cries were a constant grating soundtrack in the background of our lives. I felt Madison's anger radiating through the floorboards. And it made me angry too. I was doing my best. I was juggling a sleep-deprived daughter with a newborn and a special needs son. Why couldn't she see I was on her side, on both her sides? She was making it seem like I had to choose. This afternoon, a miracle happened. Silence. Lily had been screaming for 3 solid hours. A painful, colicky shriek that felt like it was drilling into my skull. I watched Madison pace the living room with her bouncing, shushing her face, a mask of desperation. Finally, around 4 o'clock, the crying stopped. Madison stood frozen in the middle of the room for a full minute listening. Then she crept up the stairs with the stealth of a bomb squad technician. I sank into the recliner, the sudden quiet roaring in my ears. I turned on the TV, keeping the volume on a whisper. Ryan was in his room, hopefully engrossed in his game. For the first time all day, I felt my shoulders unclench. Maybe we'd turned a corner. Maybe things would be okay. I closed my eyes just for a second, soaking in the peace. That's when I heard it. A loud, triumphant shout from upstairs. "Yes, level up!" It was Ryan. His voice, unfiltered and explosive, echoed through the quiet house. It was followed a half-second later by a sound that made every nerve in my body stand on end. The frantic, piercing wail of a startled baby. But there was another sound, too. A sound I'd never heard from my daughter before. It wasn't a cry or a complaint. It was a roar. A gut-wrenching scream of pure, spent fury that was more animal than human. Ryan. The sound of her bedroom door slamming open cracked like a gunshot, so hard I felt the vibration through the floor. The baby's cries pitched higher, mingling with Madison's enraged, incoherent shouting. I heard a thud, then a sharp, hurt yelp from my son. My blood ran cold. I dropped the remote and launched myself out of the chair, my heart pounding against my ribs as I took the stairs 2 at a time. I got to the top of the stairs just as Madison lunged, not at Ryan, but at her own bedroom door, slamming it shut. Ryan was on the floor in the hallway, curled up and sobbing. The baby's screams were now muffled, a desperate, frantic sound from behind the closed door. "What the hell did you do?" I bellowed at the door. I knelt beside Ryan, putting my hands on his shaking shoulders. "Buddy, are you okay? Did she push you?" He looked up at me, his face red and streaked with tears. I just wanted to tell her about the V-Bucks I earned. I forgot to knock. The door flew open again. Madison stood there, a wild look in her eyes. She wasn't holding Lily. He didn't forget to knock, Dad. He forgot he was a person. He kicked the door open because the chair was under the knob and screamed in his loudest voice 2 feet from her bassinet. On purpose. It wasn't on purpose, Ryan wailed. It was an accident. I stood up, putting myself between Madison and my son. I pointed a finger at her. I don't care what he did. Look at him. There's no excuse for making your brother cry like that. None. Her mouth fell open. It was a look of pure, unadulterated disbelief. No excuse. Are you listening to yourself? He's a little terror he needs to learn, but you won't ever teach him because it's easier to just let him run wild and call it ADHD. Don't you dare, I said, my voice dangerously low. Don't you dare use his condition against him. You have no idea what it's like for him, the battles he fights in his own head every single second. And you have no idea what it's like for me, she screamed, tears finally breaking free and carving paths through her makeup. I'm drowning, Dad, and instead of throwing me a life raft, you're holding my head underwater to make sure your precious son doesn't get his feet wet. That's when I snapped. The exhaustion, the constant noise, her ingratitude, it all boiled over. My precious son, you mean the one who was here long before you decided to show up on my doorstep with a baby and nowhere else to go? You knew what this house was like. You knew who Ryan was. If you couldn't handle your brother, maybe you should have thought of that 9 months ago? The words hung in the air, ugly and heavy. The wildness in her eyes died, replaced by something colder, sharper. Something I'd never seen before. So this is a punishment, she said, her voice flat. For needing my father. This isn't a punishment, this is reality. This is my house. Ryan lives here, and I will not have him treated like a villain because his brain is wired differently. If you can't deal with that, I said the final fatal words, tumbling out before I could stop them, then you can get out. For a long moment, she just stared at me. The baby's cries from inside the room were the only sound. Madison didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. Then she turned, walked back into her room, and closed the door behind her with a soft, final click. I stood in the hallway, my heart hammering. I got Ryan up and took him to his room, told him it wasn't his fault that Maddie was just tired. He sniffled and booted up his game, the crisis already fading from his mind. I went downstairs, my hands still shaking with adrenaline. I felt a surge of righteousness. I had defended my son. The one who couldn't defend himself. Madison was an adult. She'd get over it. She'd realize she was wrong to scream at a kid, her own brother. She'd come down and apologize. I poured a glass of whiskey, sank into my recliner, and waited for the apology that was surely coming. An hour passed. The only sound was the clicking of Ryan's keyboard upstairs. The baby had finally, blessedly gone quiet. Then I heard it. Not shouting, not crying. A different sound. The methodical scrape of a drawer opening. A soft thud. Another drawer. It was the sound of packing. I sat up straight, the whiskey souring in my stomach. She was bluffing. Just trying to make me feel guilty. It was petty. It was manipulative. I wasn't going to fall for it. But the sounds continued. The distinct zip of a duffel bag. The muffled click of hangers being pulled from a closet rod. I went to the bottom of the stairs. Madison, I called up. No answer. Maddie, don't be dramatic. Silence. My righteousness began to curdle into a sick, creeping dread. I walked up the stairs and stood in her open doorway. Suitcases I hadn't seen in years were open on her bed. She was folding tiny onesies and sleepers into neat stacks, her movements calm and deliberate. She didn't look at me. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice weaker than I intended. She picked up a stack of diapers and placed them in a bag. "Madison, stop this. You're overreacting. We can talk about this." She zipped a bag shut and slung it over her shoulder. Then she picked up another. She moved past me out of the room, as if I were a piece of furniture. I followed her downstairs, my feet feeling like lead. She set the bags by the front door. "Where are you going to go?" I demanded. "It's almost dark." "Don't be stupid." She ignored me, heading back upstairs. I heard her moving around then. She came back down holding Lily's car seat in one hand. The baby was asleep inside a tiny, perfect bundle, oblivious. My chest tightened. This wasn't a bluff. "Maddie, please," I said, my voice cracking. "Don't do this." She stopped at the front door and finally looked at me. The coldness in her eyes struck me like a physical blow. All the warmth, all the love, all the history between us, it was gone. Erased. In its place was the cool, polite disinterest you'd give a stranger who'd held the door for you. "You were right," she said, her voice completely devoid of emotion. "I shouldn't have come here. It was a mistake to think this was a place for her. Or for me." She turned the doorknob. "You made your choice, Dad," she said, not looking back. "You chose who needed you more. Now live with it." Then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, and a moment later I heard the engine of her beat-up Civic turn over. I watched through the window as her taillights disappeared down the street. The house was silent. Utterly, completely silent. Ryan appeared at the top of the stairs, a shadow in the dim hallway light. "Is Maddie gone?" he asked, his voice small. "Is she still mad at me?" I stared at the empty space by the door, where my granddaughter's car seat had been just moments before. I had won. I had protected my son. I had established the rules of my house. And in the crushing, deafening silence, I realized my victory felt exactly like losing everything.
Story 6.
We'd been together 4 years, ever since we matched on an app during the tail end of the pandemic. I was 35. She was 32. I worked in software project management. She was a marketing director for a mid-sized fashion brand. We had separate places still, but I'd been spending more nights at hers than mine for the past year. I even had a shelf in her bathroom and a corner of her closet. I was thinking about ring shopping. Nothing flashy, just something classic that suited her. I'd already asked her best friend for subtle advice on cut and size. The condo was on the 3rd floor of a newer building in the Arts District. You step out of the elevator, turn left, and her door is at the end of the hall. I could hear voices as I approached. Emily's laugh, then her mom's voice filtering through the cracked door. She'd mentioned her mom was coming over for a quick glass of wine before heading to a book club thing. I paused outside, not wanting to interrupt, but the hallway carpet muffled everything. So I shifted the boxes and nudged the door open quietly. Her mom, Diane, was saying, "Sweetheart, for years is a long time. Don't you think it's time to nudge him a little?" Emily sighed the way she did when she was tired. "Mom, please. We've talked about this. I'm only saying, he's reliable, he has a good job, he's kind to you. Most women would be thrilled." There was a pause, and I heard the clink of wine glasses. "He's all those things," Emily said, her voice softer now. "But I'm not sure I'm ready to lock it in forever. What if there's someone who excites me more? Someone who really lights that spark? Alex is comfortable, safe. I love him, but sometimes I wonder if I'm settling because it's easy." My stomach dropped. The pizza boxes suddenly felt scalding against my forearms. Diane made a disapproving sound. "That's not fair to him, honey. You can't keep someone on the hook while you wait for fireworks that might never come." "I'm not keeping him on the hook. I need to be sure. Marriage is permanent. I don't want to wake up in 10 years regretting that I didn't explore more." I stood there in the doorway, unseen, the smell of garlic and pepperoni filling the air while everything inside me went cold. Comfortable, safe, settling. I backed out slowly, pulled the door until it was almost closed, then turned and walked back to the elevator. I left the pizzas and beer on the little table in the hallway outside her unit, the one where residents sometimes left packages. I set my spare key on top of the top box, right next to the receipt. Then I went home. My phone started vibrating before I even reached my car. Texts first. "Where are you? Pizza here but no you?" Then calls. I let them go to voicemail. When I got back to my apartment, I poured myself a bourbon and sat on the couch in the dark. For years of vacations, meeting parents, shared friends, talks about kids and houses and growing old. And I was the safe placeholder. I finally texted her once. "I heard what you said to your mom. We're done. I'll arrange to pick up my things next week." Then I turned the phone face down. The fallout was immediate. She called 17 times that night, left voicemails that started confused, moved to pleading, then angry. I didn't listen to most of them. The next morning, I drove to my sister's place outside the city for the weekend, just to get distance. Lauren, my younger sister by 3 years, lived in a small house near the lake with her dog and her pottery studio in the garage. She was 32, single, ran her own online ceramics shop, and had always gotten along with Emily whenever they'd met at holidays. I showed up unannounced Saturday morning. She took one look at my face and pulled me inside. Over coffee on her back porch, I told her everything. Word for word what I'd overheard. Lauren listened without interrupting, which wasn't like her. She usually had opinions on everything. When I finished, she shook her head. "That's brutal, Alex. I'm so sorry. I just feel stupid," I said. "Like I missed all the signs." "You didn't miss signs. She hid them. That's on her. She made me stay the whole weekend. We hiked the trails around the lake, threw sticks for her dog, and grilled steaks Saturday night. It helped. A little. Monday morning, I texted Lauren. "Hey. Awkward request. Can you let me know when Emily's at work this week? Need to grab my stuff from her place without drama." She responded almost immediately. "She's in the office Tuesday and Thursday this week. I can meet you there if you want help carrying things." I stared at the message. "Really? That would be huge." "You sure?" "Of course." What she said was garbage. "You don't deserve to do this alone. Thanks, Lore." Tuesday afternoon, I met 2 of my buddies at Emily's building. I still had the intercom code, so we got in easy enough. My things didn't amount to much: a few suits, shoes, books, my espresso machine I'd left there, some gym stuff. We were in and out in 20 minutes. As we carried the last box to the elevator, the door to the condo opened and Lauren stepped out. She'd apparently been waiting inside. "Thought you guys could use an extra set of hands," she said, grabbing a box from my friend. I raised an eyebrow. "You were already here?" "I let myself in this morning after she left. Wanted to make sure nothing got weird." My buddies gave me knowing looks but said nothing. We loaded my car. They headed off, and Lauren suggested we grab burgers at the diner nearby. I hesitated, but I was starving and still numb. Why not? We sat in a booth by the window. At first, we talked about everything except Emily, her latest pottery series inspired by lake stones, my project's upcoming deadline, the dog she'd been thinking of adopting a friend for. Conversation flowed easier than I expected. Lauren had always been the more laid-back sibling growing up. She'd moved away for college, built her own life, and we'd stayed close but not inseparable. After we finished eating, she asked if I'd want to come out to the lake again that weekend. Some friends were doing a bonfire Saturday night. "I could use the company," she said. "And you could use the distraction." I agreed. That bonfire turned into more weekend visits. Then weekday dinners when she'd come into the city for supply runs. We'd cook together at my place or hers, watch old movies, go for long runs around the lake. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I kept waiting for it to feel strange. She was my ex's future sister-in-law in another life, but it never did. Lauren was different from Emily in every way that suddenly mattered. Direct where Emily could be evasive. Passionate about her art in a quiet, steady way. She didn't play games. She said what she meant. Emily, meanwhile, wouldn't let go. She showed up at my office twice. Security escorted her out the second time. Sent long emails about how she'd been scared, how her mom pressured her, how she didn't mean it the way it sounded. I didn't reply. One night in early spring, about 4 months after the breakup, Lauren and I were sitting on her dock after a long day of her teaching me how to throw pots on the wheel. I'd made one very lopsided bowl. The sun was setting over the water, and the air smelled like pine. I looked over at her, clay still under my fingernails, and realized I wasn't thinking of her as my ex's almost sister-in-law anymore. She was just Lauren, the woman who dropped everything to help me move out, who made me laugh when I hadn't in months, who looked at life like it was something to shape with your own hands. "You okay?" she asked, nudging my shoulder. "Yeah," I said. "Actually, would it be completely insane if I asked you to dinner? Like a real date?" She turned to face me fully, surprise in her eyes. "Probably insane," she said slowly. "Emily would lose her mind." "I know." She thought about it, staring out at the water. "But I've been thinking the same thing for weeks," she admitted. "And I don't want to not do something just because it'll upset her." She made her choices. We talked it through that night, how it would affect family gatherings, holidays, our parents. Mom and Dad loved Emily. This would blindside them. But in the end, we decided we were adults. If something real was here, we owed it to ourselves to find out. Our first date was the following Friday. A little farm-to-table place halfway between the city and the lake. Conversation never lagged. When I walked her to her car afterward, she reached up and brushed clay dust off my jacket from earlier. "This is going to be complicated," she said. "Worth it?" I asked. She smiled. "Yeah. Worth it." We kept things quiet at first. Didn't post anything obvious. But Emily found out anyway, about a month later, through a mutual friend who saw us at a concert. My phone exploded. "You're dating Lauren? My future sister-in-law? Are you serious?" I answered that one call. "Yes," I said calmly. "We're seeing each other. This is disgusting. You're doing this to punish me." "No," I said. "I'm doing this because I like her. A lot. She's my family, Alex. How could you? You made it clear I wasn't your future. Lauren's allowed to have one." She cried. Yelled. Accused me of betrayal, of using Lauren to hurt her. I let her say it all. Then told her I wished her well and hung up. Lauren got the same treatment. Emily called her screaming about betrayal, about ruining family holidays forever. Their mom got involved. Long, tearful conversations where Diane tried to stay neutral but clearly struggled. Thanksgiving that year was split. Lauren came to our parents' house with me. It was quiet, a little tense. Mom kept looking at her like she was trying to solve a puzzle, but polite. Christmas was harder. Lauren spent it with friends because going home felt impossible. I saw how much it hurt her, even though she tried to brush it off. We had long talks about whether we were asking too much of her. She insisted she was exactly where she wanted to be. Slowly, things thawed. Diane started texting Lauren separately, then inviting her for coffee. Just the two of them. Then a few dinners that included me. One night after one of those dinners, Diane pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I was angry at first," she said quietly. "Confused. But watching you too. You look at each other the way I looked at their father. I can't stay mad when my daughter is this happy." Emily moved to Denver 6 months later for a big promotion. Distance helped everyone breathe. A year after the pizza incident, Lauren and I leased a house together on the lake. Close enough for her to keep the studio, far enough from the city that my commute wasn't brutal. We turned the garage into a shared space, half pottery, half home office. Our parents adjusted. Holidays became normal again, though Emily only came home for major ones now. The first joint Christmas was awkward. Polite smiles, separate conversations. But by the next year, people were laughing together again. Emily started dating someone seriously out west. Got engaged the following summer. Diane sent us pictures from the engagement party. She looked happy. I was glad. I never felt vindictive. Never dated Lauren to prove a point. It just turned out that the person who'd been there all along, the one who showed up when everything fell apart, was the one I was meant to build with. Sometimes life takes the long way around. Sometimes the person you're supposed to end up with isn't the one you planned on. Sometimes they're the one who helps you pack boxes when your world collapses and stays. 2 years after that night in the hallway with the pizza boxes, Lauren and I got married on the dock at sunset. Small ceremony, just close family and friends. Diane walked her down the makeshift aisle we built from old pallets. Emily sent a card. Simple congratulations, nothing more. It was enough. I still think about that moment sometimes. Standing outside the door, hearing the truth I wasn't meant to hear. It hurt like nothing else. But it also set me free. Because if I hadn't heard it, I might have proposed. Might have built a life on uncertainty and good enough. Instead, I found someone who never made me wonder if I was settling. Someone who looked at me and saw exactly what she wanted. Sometimes the universe hands you heartbreak in a cardboard box. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it hands you everything else too.
Story 7.
10 years. For 10 years, I've been the ghost at the dinner table. The footnote in the family photo album. The thing my stepmother Ellen has to explain away at parties. Oh, that's just Carl. David's son from his first marriage. Her 4 kids, Mark, Jenna, Kyle, and Sophie, never let me forget it. They formed a wall the day she and my dad got married, and I've been on the outside ever since. They weren't just indifferent, they were hostile. It was a sport for them. My stuff would go missing. They'd lock me out of the house. They'd have inside jokes at the dinner table that always ended with the 4 of them laughing and me staring at my plate. Dad, he was a ghost too. Always working, always traveling. He saw the family he wanted to see, a happy blended unit orchestrated by his perfect wife, Ellen. He didn't see the whispers or the glares. He just saw the smiling photos she staged. The worst part wasn't the pranks. It was the clarity. Last summer, we were all forced on one of Ellen's family bonding camping trips. I was trying to start a fire and the 4 of them were watching me from a picnic table. You know, Jenna said loud enough for me to hear, if a bear came into camp right now, it would totally go for him first. Kyle snorted. He's the weakest link. Then Mark, the oldest, the golden boy, delivered the final verdict. Honestly, I'd probably just watch. Let nature take its course. They all laughed. I looked over at them, the flickering lighter in my hand. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even surprised. It was just confirming. They wouldn't just let me get mauled by a bear. They'd pull up a chair and crack open a beer. They'd made it clear 1,000 times. I was nothing to them. So when Ellen gathered us all in the living room 2 months ago, a manic beaming smile on her face, I already knew whatever was coming wasn't for me. We have the most wonderful news, she announced, clapping her hands together. Mark was sitting beside his new fiancée, a woman named Jessica, who looked perpetually terrified. Mark and Jessica have set a date. And she paused for dramatic effect, turning her high-wattage smile directly on me. Mark has asked Carl to be one of his groomsmen. The room went silent. I looked at Mark. His jaw was tight, a muscle twitching in his cheek. He wouldn't meet my eyes. This wasn't his idea. This was an Ellen production, starring her with the rest of us as unwilling props. No, I said. Just that. One word. Ellen's smile didn't falter, but it became a blade. Don't be silly, Carl. Of course you will. No, I won't, I repeated, standing up. Congratulations on the wedding. I nodded at Jessica, who looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Then I turned and walked back to my room, the silence of the living room pressing in on my back. The next few weeks were a masterclass in psychological warfare. Ellen started soft. She'd catch me in the kitchen, putting a gentle hand on my arm. Honey, I know you and Mark have had your little squabbles over the years, she'd say, her voice dripping with condescending sweetness. But this is different. This is about family. It's about being there for your brother on the most important day of his life. Mark is not my brother, I'd say, pulling my arm away. He doesn't even like me. That's not true. He loves you. You're all my children. It was like talking to a wall. A very well-dressed, delusional wall. When the soft approach didn't work, she escalated. She started leaving things on my bed. A magazine about wedding etiquette opened to the page about a groomsman's duties. A swatch of silky, god-awful burgundy fabric. A little note written in her perfect cursive times. This will look so handsome on you, asterisk. I swept it all into the trash can. Then came the texts. Group chats I was added to without my consent. Asterisk. Groomsmen meeting re-bachelor party planning times, I'd immediately leave the group. A minute later, I'd get a private text from Ellen. Asterisk, Carl, please don't be difficult. Asterisk. One night she ambushed me with my dad, catching us both as I was heading upstairs. David, talk to your son, she said, her voice strained. He's refusing to be in Mark's wedding. He's being so unreasonable. My dad, caught in the headlights as usual, just rubbed the back of his neck. Come on, Carl. Just do it for your mother. It's one day. How hard can it be? It's not for her, I said, looking straight at Ellen. And it's not one day, it's a lie. I'm not standing up there and pretending we're some big happy family for your friends. We times are times a family, Ellen insisted, her voice rising. Are we? I shot back. Ask Mark if he thinks we are. Ask him what he'd do if a bear showed up. Dad just looked confused. Ellen's face went pale for a second before the mask of maternal concern snapped back into place. I don't know what you're talking about. You're being dramatic. I just shook my head and went to my room. The final straw came yesterday. It was a simple text from a number I didn't recognize. Asterisk. This is a reminder for the groomsmen of the Miller-Hansen wedding. Your suit fitting is scheduled for tomorrow, Saturday, at 2:00 p.m. at Tuxedo Junction. Please be prompt. Asterisk. I stared at the phone. The sheer audacity. She'd gone ahead and scheduled it, assuming she could just bulldoze me into submission. I felt a cold, hard knot of defiance solidify in my gut. I typed back a simple reply, not to the group, but to Ellen. Asterisk, I will not be there. Asterisk. Her response was almost instantaneous. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Asterisk, what do you mean you won't be there? I've already paid the deposit, Carl. You have to go. Asterisk. I didn't reply. My phone buzzed again. A phone call. Asterisk, Ellen. Asterisk, I hit decline. It rang again immediately. I declined it again and put my phone on silent. For the next hour, it was quiet. I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd finally gotten the message. That I wasn't her prop, she could move around her stage. I was actually starting to relax, lying on my bed with my headphones on, when I heard the sound of her SUV crunching up the gravel driveway way too fast. I pulled my headphones off. A car door slammed shut with enough force to rattle my window. Heavy, furious footsteps stomped up the front porch steps. The front door opened and slammed shut, shaking the whole house. I sat up, my heart starting to pound. Asterisk. Thump. 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 Asterisk. The sound of her footsteps hard and fast coming up the stairs. Coming for me. They stopped right outside my door. The house was dead silent. I held my breath, listening. Slowly, deliberately, the brass doorknob began to turn. The door flew open and slammed against the wall, making a new dent in the drywall. Ellen stood in the doorway, her chest heaving, her perfectly made-up face a mask of crimson rage. The gentle, manipulative matriarch was gone. This was the real her. What is the meaning of this? She hissed, her voice low and venomous. She took a step into my room, her eyes scanning the space as if looking for evidence of my betrayal. I paid a deposit, Carl. I made an appointment. You will be there tomorrow. No, I said, my own voice calm and quiet. I stayed seated on my bed. I knew that my stillness would infuriate her more than any shouting match. This is not a negotiation, she snapped, pointing a trembling finger at me. This is not about you and your teenage moods. This is about family. This is about showing a united front. There is no united front, I said, looking her straight in the eye. There's you, your 4 kids, my dad, and me. That's not a front. It's a battlefield, and I'm the only one who ever gets shot. Her jaw tightened. I have spent 10 years, times 10 years, times trying to make you feel like a part of this family. I have bent over backwards for you. I almost laughed. It was such a breathtaking lie. Bent over backwards? You mean ignoring the fact that your kids treat me like something they scraped off their shoe? They do not. They love you. You are just determined to be miserable, to make things difficult. Her voice was rising, cracking with a frantic energy. She started pacing the small space between my bed and my desk. This wedding has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. Do you have any idea the kind of pressure I'm under? And there it was. The crack in the facade. The pressure you're under, I asked, my voice dangerously soft. I thought this was about Mark. Of course it's about Mark, she shrieked, whirling around to face me. But people are watching, my friends, David's business partners. They're all going to be there. They all know our story. They know about our beautiful blended family. She said the words, blended family, like it was the title of a novel she'd written. What are they going to think? She pleaded, her voice suddenly dropping into a desperate whine. Her whole body sagged. What is it going to look like if David's own son isn't even standing up there with his brother? It'll look like something is wrong. It will look bad, Carl. It will look so, so bad. She stared at me, her eyes wide and wet, and I saw it all. It wasn't about family. It wasn't about unity or brotherhood or love. It was about set dressing. It was about the optics. I was a prop. And my refusal to play my part was ruining her production. I was a loose thread threatening to unravel the perfect tapestry she'd spent a decade weaving. Something inside me, a tightly wound coil of 10 years of silence and swallowing my own rage, finally snapped. I stood up from the bed. I don't care, I said. The words were flat, devoid of heat. Just a simple statement of fact. I don't care how it looks. Her face crumpled in disbelief. What did you say? I don't care, I repeated, stepping towards her. About your friends. About my dad's partners. About your perfect picture. I am not going to stand up in a church and lie for you. It's not a lie, she cried, her hands balling into fists. He is your brother. That was it. That was the line. The final hypocritical, insane statement that pushed me over the edge. A cold, clear anger washed over me, sharpening every word before it left my mouth. My brother, I asked? My voice was no longer quiet. It was a blade. You mean the brother who stood 10 feet away from me last summer and told Jenna and Kyle he'd watch me get mauled to death by a bear? Ellen froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. The color drained from her face, leaving 2 bright red blotches on her cheeks. I took another step closer, forcing her to look at me. He didn't just say it, Ellen. He described it. Honestly, he said, I'd probably just watch. Let nature take its course. And then your other 3 perfect children laughed. They thought it was hilarious. That's the brother you want me to celebrate. That's the family you need me to put on a burgundy tuxedo for. I let the question hang in the dead silent air of the room. I watched her manufactured reality shatter and fall to the floor in 1,000 pieces. I had taken her script, ripped it to shreds, and set it on fire. She had nothing. No defense. No denial. She knew it was true. Maybe she'd even overheard it herself and just filed it away under things to ignore. For a long moment, she just stared her mind, scrambling for a new tactic, a new angle of attack. Finally, she found one. She drew herself up a flicker of indignation, returning to her eyes. There is no reason, she said, her voice a brittle whisper, to use such vulgar language. It was pathetic. A defeated queen trying to critique the grammar of the man who just stormed her castle. She couldn't argue the substance, so she attacked the style. I didn't even bother to respond. I just held her gaze. The power had shifted completely. For the first time in 10 years, she wasn't looking at a nuisance to be managed. She was looking at someone who wouldn't break. The stalemate lasted a few more seconds before her eyes dropped to the floor. Defeated. Get out of my room, I said. She flinched, then turned without another word and walked out, leaving the door wide open. I listened to her footsteps, slower this time, retreat down the stairs. A few minutes later, I heard her SUV start up and crunch back down the driveway. I walked over and shut my door, the click of the latch echoing in the sudden, profound silence. It wasn't a victory that felt like a celebration. There was no joy, no rush of adrenaline. Just a heavy, hollow space where a decade of anxiety used to be. The fight was over for now. The burgundy swatch was still in the trash. The suit fitting would happen without me. I had drawn a line. Not in the sand, but in solid rock. And for the first time, I felt the solid ground of my own well-being beneath my feet.
Story 8.
Alyssa, I'm 29, and for most of my life, I was the family's financial safety net disguised as a disappointment. It started when I was 16. While other kids were saving for prom tickets, I was handing my father a white envelope every Friday, containing exactly $150 from my tips at the diner. They called it contributing to the household. I called it rent. That same year, my parents bought Brandon a brand new Mustang for his 18th birthday. They didn't ask him for gas money. They didn't ask him to get a job. They handed him the keys and told him he was destined for greatness. I remember watching him drive away, the engine roaring, while I calculated if I had enough leftover cash to buy a used textbook for my advanced placement history class. I cried about it then. I felt small and used. But looking back now, from the driver's seat of my own life, I realized that envelope of cash was the best education they ever gave me. It taught me the value of $1. And more importantly, it taught me that their love had a price tag I could never afford. But nothing prepared me for the financial suicide mission they launched for this wedding. A few days after the dinner at the Azure, I sat in my home office, a space I bought and paid for without their help, and pulled up the public property records on my parents' house. I needed to understand where the money was coming from. My father had been complaining about the cost of heating oil all winter, yet they were throwing a 6-figure event. The math didn't add up. One click, and the truth flashed on the screen. It wasn't savings. It was a massacre. To fund the $150,000 non-refundable deposit for Brandon's royal wedding, my parents hadn't just scraped together some extra cash. They had executed a cash-out refinance on their paid-off home, stripping out 80% of the equity they had spent 30 years building. But that wasn't enough. I dug deeper into the tax implications. To cover the rest, they had liquidated their 401k retirement accounts early. They took the 10% penalty. They took the massive income tax hit. They literally set their entire financial future on fire just to keep Brandon warm for one weekend. I stared at the numbers, feeling a cold kind of nausea. Why would rational adults do this? It's what I call the borrower's delusion. See, my parents didn't just love Brandon. They were addicted to the idea of him. They had bet every cent of their retirement on the fantasy that Brandon was a genius business executive who would become a millionaire and take care of them. They needed him to be the golden child. If Brandon was a success, then their recklessness was actually a brilliant investment. If Brandon was a fraud, then they were just two elderly people who had bankrupted themselves for an ego trip. That's why they hated me. I was stable. I was debt-free. I was boring. I was the mirror that reflected their own stupidity back at them. Every time I paid a bill on time or saved money, it reminded them that they didn't have to gamble everything to be secure. They had to smash the mirror to keep believing the lie. They thought they were investing in a king. They didn't know they were bankrolling a court jester who was already stealing from the treasury. The escalation began 3 weeks before the wedding. And it wasn't subtle. It started with a text from Brandon at 2 a.m. Need you to coordinate with the caterer. They're asking about vegan options. Handle it. No, please. No. Hello. Just a command. As if I were his personal assistant. I didn't reply. The next morning, my phone rang while I was in a meeting with a client. It was my mother. I sent it to voicemail. She called again. And again. 17 times in 20 minutes. Finally, I stepped out into the hallway and answered. "What is the emergency?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Why aren't you answering your brother?" She shrieked. "He's stressed out of his mind. He needs you to manage the vendor contracts. You know he's not good with details." "I have a job, Mom," I said, keeping my voice low. "And I have my own wedding to plan. Remember? The one you told me to cancel?" "Don't be selfish, Alyssa," she snapped. "Brandon is the heir apparent to the Sterling Empire. This wedding is a networking event for his future. Yours is just a ceremony. Prioritize the family." "I'm not doing it," I said, and hung up. That afternoon, they showed up at my apartment. All three of them. I opened the door to find Brandon standing there in a suit that cost more than my car, flanked by my parents like bodyguards. He pushed past me into the living room without waiting for an invite. "Where's Julian?" he asked, looking around with a sneer. "Out fixing a toilet somewhere?" "Julian is working," I said, leaving the door open. "What do you want?" "We need to talk about your attitude," my father said, stepping inside. "Your brother is under immense pressure. The least you can do is help him coordinate." "I told you no," I said. "I'm busy." Brandon laughed. He walked over to my desk and picked up a framed photo of Julian and me. "Busy doing what? Crunching numbers for chump change?" "Look, Alyssa, let's be real. Julian is a handyman. You're a glorified accountant. Neither of you understands the stakes here." He set the photo down face down. "I'm going to be vice president of sales by Christmas," he announced, puffing out his chest. "Mr. Sterling himself is coming to the wedding. This event has to be flawless. If I land this promotion, I'll be making enough to buy and sell you 10 times over." I looked at him, really looked at him. The arrogance. The entitlement. The absolute certainty that the world existed to serve him. "You really think you're getting that promotion?" I asked quietly. "It's a done deal," he scoffed. "Sterling loves me. I'm the golden boy. That's why Mom and Dad put up the money. It's an investment in the winning horse." My mother nodded eagerly. "Exactly. We're investing in the future. And you need to get on board, Alyssa. Stop being jealous and start being useful." "Jealous," I repeated. "Yes, jealous," Brandon shouted. "Because I'm the one going places. I'm the one who matters. And you're just the help. So act like it." He smirked at me. That same smirk he'd used since we were kids when he broke my toys and blamed me for crying. "Fine," I said. The word tasted like ash. But it was necessary. "I'll be there." "Good," my father said, patting Brandon on the back. "See? She just needed a reminder of her place." They left, high-fiving each other in the hallway. They thought they had won. They thought they had crushed me back into submission. I closed the door and locked it. Then I turned around and looked at the empty apartment. They didn't know that Julian wasn't fixing a toilet. He was in a boardroom across town, signing the final acquisition papers for a chain of luxury venues, including the Gilded Manor, the very place Brandon had just booked. And they certainly didn't know about my job. Glorified accountant. Brandon had called me. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. I logged into the secure portal for the Sterling Group. I typed in my credentials. User A. Vance. Clearance level. External forensic auditor. Status. Active. I wasn't an accountant. I was the person hired by the board of directors to find the leak in their sales division. I was the person Brandon was terrified of. Only he didn't know I existed. I stared at the screen. They wanted me to be useful? I would be useful. I would be the most useful person in their entire lives. I was going to audit my brother's entire existence. The next morning, I didn't put on my usual work-from-home leggings. I put on a charcoal blazer, stilettos that clicked like gunshots on marble, and the diamond stud earrings I'd bought myself after my last big case. I drove downtown to the Sterling Group Tower, a 40-story monolith of glass and steel that dominated the skyline. To my family, this building was the temple where Brandon worshipped. To Brandon, it was the kingdom he was about to inherit. To me, it was a crime scene. I walked into the lobby. The security guard, a former Marine named Earl, who never smiled at anyone, looked up. He saw me, straightened his spine, and nodded. "Good morning, Miss Vance," he rumbled. "Boardroom B is unlocked for you." "Thanks, Earl." I swiped my badge. It wasn't a visitor pass. It was a red-level clearance card. The kind issued only to C-suite executives and the external auditors hired to police them. The light turned green, and I stepped into the elevator. I wasn't here to check attendance. I was here to hunt. I set up in the private conference room on the 38th floor. I didn't need to hack anything. I had root access. I pulled up the financial records for the sales division, specifically the accounts managed by the top performer, Brandon Vance. Glorified accountant, he had called me. I opened the digital ledger. I didn't look for math errors. Math errors are mistakes. I was looking for patterns. And patterns tell stories. It took me less than 10 minutes to find the ghost in the machine. Brandon's sales figures were spectacular. Too spectacular. He was showing a 30% quarter-over-quarter growth in a stagnant market. I clicked on his top 3 new clients: Apex Global Solutions, Vertex Media, and North Star Consulting. I ran a quick cross-reference with the Secretary of State's database. Apex Global. Dissolved in 2019. Vertex Media. The registered address was a UPS store mailbox in a strip mall in Nevada. North Star Consulting. Didn't exist. My brother wasn't a sales genius. He was a fiction writer. He was creating fake invoices to inflate his sales targets, triggering massive performance bonuses for himself. But where was the money coming from to pay these invoices? I followed the cash flow. He was funneling the marketing budget money meant for ads and client dinners into vendor payments to these fake companies. And here was the kicker. I traced the routing number for Vertex Media. It looked familiar. I pulled up my own banking app and checked my transfer history, specifically the $2,000 I had sent Brandon for his car repair last year. The routing numbers matched. He was wiring company money directly into his personal PayPal account. He wasn't just cooking the books. He was burning down the kitchen. The total embezzled amount over 3 years was just over $400,000. I sat back in my chair, feeling a cold, hard knot in my stomach. This wasn't just unethical. This was federal prison time. This was wire fraud, tax evasion, and grand larceny. Then, I found the cherry on top. A draft email in his sent folder, addressed to his frat brother. The old man Sterling is going senile. I'm printing money over here, and nobody's watching. By the time I'm VP, I'll bury the paper trail. The parents just mortgaged the house for the wedding, so I'm golden. I stared at the screen. He called our parents' sacrifice, their financial ruin, his safety net. He was laughing at them. He was laughing at Mr. Sterling. I hit print. The laser printer hummed to life in the corner, spitting out page after page of damning evidence. Bank statements, fake invoices, the email, the IP logs. It was a thick stack, warm to the touch. It weighed about as much as a brick, and it would do just as much damage when it hit him. I organized the papers neatly, tapping the edges on the mahogany table to straighten them. Then, I placed the entire stack into a thick, cream-colored envelope. On the front, in my best calligraphy, I wrote 2 words. Wedding gift. The day of the wedding was a spectacle of excess. I arrived at the Gilded Manor in a black tie gown I'd bought specifically for this moment. Midnight blue, sleek, and devastatingly elegant. Julian looked like James Bond in his tuxedo. We didn't look like the help. We looked like we owned the place. Which, technically, Julian did. We walked through the iron gates, past the fountains spouting champagne, and into the grand ballroom. It was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the ceiling. Waiters in white gloves circulated with trays of caviar. It was a palace built on a foundation of lies. Brandon was holding court near the bar, already 3 drinks deep. He spotted us immediately. Well? Well? He sneered, walking over with a glass of scotch in his hand. Look who decided to play dress-up. Did you rent those? Or did you steal them? We bought them, I said, my voice cool. Nice party, Brandon. It's not a party, he corrected, leaning in close so I could smell the expensive alcohol on his breath. It's a coronation. Mr. Sterling is here. He's going to announce my promotion tonight. And you know what the best part is? He gestured around the room. Brandon bragged that our parents had funded everything because they knew who the real winner was. Nearby, Mom and Dad beamed as they praised his visionary leadership, clinging to the illusion that he was Sterling's chosen heir. They had no idea they were standing on a trapdoor. Then Mr. Sterling entered. The room hushed as the legendary businessman moved through the crowd. Brandon rushed to greet him, boasting about excellence and destiny. Sterling listened calmly, then stepped onto the stage and took the microphone. I'd like to correct the record, he said. Accuracy matters in business. Please welcome my lead external auditor, Alyssa Vance. The spotlight hit me. Gasps followed. My parents froze. Brandon went pale. Sterling announced the truth. $400,000 in embezzlement, 3 years of tax fraud, and a crude shell company scheme. Brandon wasn't being promoted. He was fired. Federal agents were waiting. Brandon collapsed as he was arrested. My mother screamed that I was lying. Sterling replied simply, It's math. Outside, Brandon snapped when he saw Julian lunging at him in a panic. Officers tackled him instantly. Assault was added to his charges. My parents then demanded their $150,000 wedding deposit back. Julian said nothing. I stepped forward and cited the contract's conduct clause. Criminal activity voided all refunds. That money, their retirement, their last gamble now legally belong to Julian. Brandon is serving 3 years. My parents lost their house soon after. Julian later bought it at auction and turned it into a shelter for runaway teens. They tried to make me feel homeless my whole life. Now I hold the keys and the door is finally open to people who deserve it.